Sure. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Studio City Neighborhood Council Special Board Meeting of January 12th, 2023. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. Abby, will you please call the roll?
Sure. King Clement, absent. Dean Cutler, absent. Fiona Duffy, absent. Randall Freed, absent. Ira Gold.
Here.
Jeff Hartwick.
Here.
Julie Houlihan.
Here.
Scott Mandel.
Present.
Chief Meehan.
Here.
Brandon Marino.
Here.
Richard Niederberg.
Here.
Karen Sorrow, absent. Adele Slutter.
Here.
Adam Summer, absent. Alexa Steinberg, absent. Abby Velasco, present. We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to item 2, President's comments. Since this is a special board meeting, I am not going to make any comments. I'll make comments next week at our regular board meeting. Moving along to item 3, public comment on non-agenda item. If you are from the public and would like to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda, please raise your hand. If your hand is up for item number 3, please lower it, or I will be calling on you for public comment on something that is not on the agenda. After the motion is read, we will go to public comment for item number 4, but for now we're on item number 3, which is required public comment on non-agenda items. So if your hand is up, I'm going to call on you.
As a point of information, Alexa
Sure.
Steinberg arrived at 7:10. I just promoted her.
Fantastic. So caller ending in 647 for public comment on a non-agenda item. You have 1 minute to speak. We start the timer once you start talking. So go ahead. Caller ending in 647. Ira, are you able to keep time?
For the moment, yes. I won't be able to in just a bit, but right now I can. Give me 1 second, please. What are we giving?
1 minute for the non-agenda item.
Okay, hold please. Go ahead.
I'd like to speak at the, I would like to speak at the next agenda item, please.
Okay. Al Diamond and Beth Diamond, your hand is up for non-agenda items. Go ahead. You have 1 minute.
Our hand is down, Scott. It's not up.
Okay, I will lower it. Caller ending in 471. Non-agenda item, 1 minute. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, I had taken it off. It's for the next item. Thank you.
Okay, great. No worries. Anyone else from the public have a comment on something that is not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the board? Please raise your hand. Camran, you're commenting on a non-agenda item. You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I wanted to support the River Park project and wanted to express my disappointment in the ad hoc committee. I understand they had concerns about River Park.
Excuse me, we're on some items that are not on the agenda. That's item number 4. So can you come back?
Okay, so I'll have to wait then.
Yes, we're on item 3 at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry about that.
It's okay. And the last hand I see is Eric Previn. You have 1 minute for an item that is not on the agenda. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So nice work putting together a big meeting on this important subject. But for the non-agenda stuff, you know, Studio City has a lot of wonderful attributes, and open space is one of the vital pieces. It's not just the one on the agenda, but there's the Beeman Park, and of course we have the the Sportsman's Landing and that issue. what I was hoping was that the new council member, Nithya Raman, who, I think everybody respects, she's the greatest of all time. She got a lot of votes. But Mr. Krikorian cleverly shunted some of these trouble spots, these complicated issues into her district. And I just hope that she's going to take the time to, deliberate on what was done and how it was done and see a brighter future for the people of Studio City. So thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Anybody else from the public, raise your hand now for item 3, non-agenda items.
Why do you keep saying it's raised, but it's not?
Not seeing any more hands. Item 3 is now closed. We're going to move on to item number 4. And Chip, go ahead, please.
Hello, I am Chip Meehan. I am chair of the ad hoc committee for the Studio City Neighborhood Council investigating the Harvard Westlake proposal to develop the property currently known as Weddington Golf and Tennis. I want to thank everyone for attending. Not a surprise, we have a huge outpouring of public interest. This has been a very hot topic in the community for years. I want to thank the ad hoc committee, Alexander Black, Peter Cole, Tony Knight, Mike Kapolsky, Melanie Winter, and Terry Austin. We've also reached out deeper into the community for some other people with expertise when we wanted to take a look at some of the topics that we investigated. But I appreciate everyone's hard work and an attempt to come at this as objectively as possible, which was our mission. We were formed after the December 9th ad hoc committee was created as a response to the DEIR for the project. We had several meetings through the third and fourth quarter, and ended up unanimously approving this motion, which recommends the board itself opposes the project as it is currently submitted. This is not a blanket opposition to the project. There are other organizations out there that have that point of view. Our mandate as the ad hoc was to look at traffic, light, noise, public access, artificial turf, and other environmental factors. When we reviewed everything, we ended up coming down to the 2 gating factors for conversation being artificial turf and greenhouse gas emissions, as you see in the motion. And we did not pursue the other public access, et cetera, until we can nail down what exactly the facility will look like. And then we look forward to doing that with Harvard Westlake. I think that's all I have for now, if that works for you, Scott, and we can come back after comment.
Sure, you can now read the motion.
I shall read the motion. The motion is the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, SCNC, opposes Los Angeles City Planning Department case number CPC 2020-1511, VCU SPR, the Harvard Westlake River project as currently submitted due to the following concerns. 1, greenhouse gas production. The DEIR projects a significant increase in the production of greenhouse gases from the proposed facility. That is unacceptable in a time when we need to limit and even reverse carbon emissions and is contrary to the policy goals of the Los Angeles Green New Deal. The surrounding neighborhood would bear a disproportionate share of the increased emissions, but the entire community would be negatively impacted. The subjective metric supports the characterization of the project as being, quote, too big for the neighborhood. The committee, I guess the board, proposes Harvard Westlake submit a plan that demonstrates reductions or modifications in the scope of construction of the project and its operations to be carbon neutral relative to the existing facilities and operations. So carbon neutral relative to the existing facility and operations. Artificial turf is our second point. The proposal is for 2 fields of artificial turf to replace the existing natural turf. This installation would have significant negative effects on the neighborhood in terms of A, creating a heat island effect that would raise the temperature of the neighborhood, B, negatively affecting the soil column underneath the fields that would have negative impacts on carbon sequestration, groundwater, the health of the surrounding vegetation. C, artificial turf is only semi-permeable, which creates unknown flood risks for the neighborhood. D, PFAs, PFOs, and microplastics, which are implicated in several health issues, including cancer, leach and off gas into the atmosphere, soil, and water. The methane, carbon dioxide, and other emissions from the artificial turf degradation do not seem to be added to the greenhouse gas computations in the DEIR. At the end of its life cycle, artificial turf creates literally acres of plastic waste that cannot be recycled. Artificial turf is a hotly debated topic. The current research has environmental and consumer advocates touting studies that show the danger of this product, and in opposition, industry figures who attempt to prove the product is safe. Intuitively, covering the earth with acres of plastic exposed to the elements that demonstrably deteriorates in a short period of time seems inappropriate in a residential setting. We request an independent laboratory test samples of the proposed turf. We also await the decision by the state of California to declare artificial turf a carcinogen as ordered by Proposition 65. The preferred path for Harvard Westlake would be installation of natural turf in light of environmental factors, irregardless of the toxicity study findings. 3, community issues of light, noise, and traffic. These issues are best handled within the jurisdiction of a new committee that involves Harvard Westlake and community stakeholders, as suggested by Harvard Westlake. There are 2 phases that need to be considered: construction and operation. The construction period and operational phases need to be well managed, as there are community perils in each. The composition, rules of governance, and enforcement capabilities of the committee need to be established. Of particular concern are the potential combined impacts of several development projects being under construction simultaneously. Anecdotally, we have seen the operations of the retail center at Coldwater and Ventura impede traffic to an unforeseen degree. Surface streets in the community have limited capacity and are currently stressed. Keeping Studio City navigable for residents and other Angelenos who travel through Studio City will be a complicated endeavor. All projects must be evaluated in a manner that considers the cumulative impact of multiple developments. Other issues, the list above is not comprehensive of the concerns of members of the ad hoc committee, nor the many community stakeholders who contributed to the conversation that led to this motion. This motion is limited in scope to the specific issues the ad hoc was formed to review. As the HW River Park project moves further through this approval process, there will need to be additional opportunities to seek amendment from the developer. Satisfaction of the concerns above does not guarantee support for the project, absent consideration of other topics. And there is a letter that Harvard Westlake had sent. Is this 5? Looking at the link, is that, Scott, the letter from December?
Correct.
That's a letter from December.
Sure.
That is a letter Harvard Westlake had sent in lieu of participation on the Zoom meeting. We discussed that. It was above board. We were aware of it, and we've entered that comment of theirs in the record. There's also a committee report on the DEIR, and that's what we got.
Great. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to public comment, and we're going to give everybody 90 seconds to make their statement. If you don't need 90 seconds, please don't use it. If you simply want to reaffirm or state or repeat something somebody else already commented on, go ahead and do that. That will give more people an opportunity to speak, although you're free to use your full 90 seconds. We're going to limit public comment at this time to 90 minutes in total. So we will see where we are at 90 minutes after we go through all of the raised hands, if it even takes that long. So that being said, after public comment is over, the applicant will be able to make a sort of a presentation, a statement. They're not going to screen share, but they'll have a statement. And then if the applicant and the board members can maybe jot down any of the questions that come from the public, we'll address those all at the same time, right after public comment is closed. So we don't need to address comments, but we will address questions or concerns. So that being said, we'll do 90 seconds each. Ira, you're still able to keep time?
Yeah, I can keep time.
Great. So we'll just start at the top. Caller ending in 471. You have 90 seconds once you start speaking.
Hello. I'm joining this evening to urge the Neighborhood Council to delay taking a position until the final EIR is published. At the moment, the City of Los Angeles and the school are still answering questions and providing new information to be included in the final EIR. The final EIR is still not released for the public to review. For the Neighborhood Council to take any position before reviewing the new information in the final EIR would show that this body is disingenuous and has no respect for the development process under CEQA. I urge the Neighborhood Council to do the obvious right thing and postpone taking any position. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Cam Ran, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Cameron Fatahi. I'm a member of this community, and I wanted to express my support for the River Park project and my disagreement with the ad hoc committee to the extent that they have concerns about increased greenhouse gases. River Park is going to be a park. It is a park now, and it's going to remain as a park. It's not a factory that produces anything that increases or produces greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases are not going to come from River Park itself. To the extent the members of the community will drive to River Park to play sports and enjoy the park, that is what takes place now, and that is what will continue to take place. And that's what we would want for people from the community to come and enjoy River Park. So I hope the Neighborhood Council will support the River Park project and not be overly concerned by the ad hoc committee's issues with the greenhouse gases. And quickly, in regard to the turf versus natural grass, I think for a number of years, the city, LADWP, they always encourage people to replace natural grass with turf in the days of drought and all of that. And I think that's the direction a lot of—
That's time. Please conclude your comments.
That's the direction a lot of places have gone to. So I totally support River Park, and I hope the committee, the Neighborhood Council will also do the same.
Thank you. Heidi, go ahead, please.
Hi, yes, I urge the council to please support this motion brought by the ad hoc committee, which spent many hours both with applicant and the public. The reasons stated in the motion, along with the fact that nearly 15,000 people have signed the petition to save this property, should be more than enough to support this motion. Unfortunately, the last caller is a little bit, you know, he has not done his research because, as we all know, artificial turf does do the greenhouse. So he needs to do a little more research on that. But anyway, I do agree. I urge the Neighborhood Council to please support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. John, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Joe Axelrad. I'm calling to support the River Park. I'm expressing my exceeding support for the campus project. I'm a lifelong resident of Studio City. I've lived here for over 40 years, and I have 3 young children that live in here with me. It's hard to express the affection that I have for Studio City and for the community. And one thing I know is that Harvard Westlake is a terrific partner in our community. I'm thrilled about the increased recreational opportunities that the project could bring to Studio City. And like I said, we live just within walking distance of Weddington. And as parents of young children, we bring our kids to Weddington. And we're exceedingly invested in the future of Studio City. And I have a great deal of concern about what would have happened if Harvard Westlake had not come in and saved Weddington. Because as we all know, Weddington was going to be developed into high-rise apartment buildings. And now it's not going to be. And that's not going to be a concern for us anymore. And that would have significantly contributed to greenhouse gases, significantly contributed to traffic congestion. But instead, what we'll have is the Harvard Westlake River Park with Harvard Westlake as a community partner, continuing this sort of dialogue.
Please conclude your comments.
And I think for the reasons stated, I urge the neighborhood council to reject this motion and support the Harvard Westlake River Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Previn, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Wait, can you hear me now?
We hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. It's Eric Previn, and I do not support the River Park project that everybody is lovingly referring to as the River Park. It's not really going to be a park so much as it's going to be a perimeter for members of the community to walk around the gated area for the many students who are going to be performing athletics in the field during the hours when people would want to use it, if they're even admitted and invited to do so. It's not clear who will be permitted to do that. I don't think that putting a large structure is a good idea into that last bit of open space. And I think that robbing the community of the very cool kind of ethos of a golf, course that's publicly accessible is a horrible, horrible idea. And to do it the way that they're imagining doing it, in a kind of high-handed gifting to the people, the opportunity to allow whoever just said that this is going to be high-rise apartments is fabricating. That was a absolute fake threat to intimidate people in various ways that they use it all the time. Oh, we want affordable housing? You want affordable housing? That's what we're going to bring. Bullshit. This is a public amenity. It should remain a public amenity for the people to use. And Harvard Westlake knows it. And there will be no way out of the betrayal of the community if you go forward with the project as planned.
Next time, please conclude your comments.
Scale it back, and keep the golf intact, and don't be greedy. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller John Manzanares, go ahead. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hi, good evening. No worries. I'm a 35-year resident of Studio City. I live right next door to the golf course. So this directly impacts and affects me. I have no connection with Harvard Westlake. No family members have ever gone there. I've never gone there. I've done my own due diligence, and I wholeheartedly support what Harvard Westlake is proposing. It would be a beautiful amenity for the city and allow more people to use the space than currently are able to use it. Unless you're a golfer, you're not able to use it. Now, my real concern for tonight's meeting is this entire process with the neighborhood council. This ad hoc committee purports to be objectively reviewing and making a recommendation with respect to this proposal. That's not what's going on here. This committee has been staffed with people who vigorously and actively oppose this project, have opposed it from the get-go, raise money to oppose it, send out mailers opposing it, put billboards up opposing it. That's not ethical to have them reviewing this. Fine if you disagree with those who support it, but do us a favor and have a real good faith review of this project. Don't put an ad hoc committee together that is stacked with people who have opposed it before there was ever a draft EIR, before this ever came.
That's time. Please conclude your comment.
This is not in good faith. It smacks of cronyism, and it's, you know, it's comparable to Clarence Thomas reviewing the election fraud cases.
Thank you. Alan and Beth Diamond, I know your hand was up, so go ahead and unmute yourself. You have 90 seconds.
No, okay. My name is Alan Diamond, and I've been a Studio City resident for over 35 years, and I'm the president of the Studio City Residents Association, representing 2,000 members. The Studio City Residents Association agrees with and support the motion because there are numerous unresolved outstanding issues related to this project. The committee proposed that the DEIR be recirculated, covering the elements that were not addressed or were ignored in the DEIR. Harvard Westlake's opposition, December the 22nd, stated incorrectly, and I quote, "The DEIR concluded," end quote. No such conclusion has been made, public or otherwise. Harvard Westlake's application for the CUP is incomplete. Therefore, Harvard Westlake should submit a revised plan as stated in the motion, honoring the representations made in the Harvard Westlake press release to the council office and to the stakeholders that was issued when Harvard Westlake first bought the property. I'd like to thank you, invite our members. Thank you to the committee for all your hard work, and you have our support 100% should you keep going down and agree to this motion, which is very well made. Thank you so much.
And that's time.
Josh Lucas, go ahead. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Josh Lucas. I, on behalf of Angel City Sports, would like to express my support in the River Park. We're a local nonprofit. We partner with Harvard Westlake currently. We provide free adaptive sports for athletes with physical disabilities of all ages and abilities, and others. A game changer for people with physical disabilities is going to provide open space and athletic facilities that are both not just accessible, but also at the proper standard for people with physical disabilities to also chase sports excellence and improve themselves physically. So it's really hard to find accessible athletic facilities, especially for different types of physical disabilities. And this partnership with River Park is going to let our athletes train year round. And what also is important is this aligns with not just being a chance for us, but to be inclusive with non-disabled peers. And that is also huge for kids and adults with physical disabilities to have an inclusive space, their recreation, and it's built for them. So we are in support of this, and we get a chance, and the River Park helps us take a step in doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, Lori Rittenberg, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've been living in Studio City for 30 years. I've been playing golf and tennis for years there at Weddington, and I'm a senior citizen. Can't afford to join a country club for golf or tennis, or a tennis club. And the artificial turf is just so toxic. And I thank you for all the good work of this committee, and I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park. Thank you so much.
Alex Daniels, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. It's Alex Zbicki. I don't know. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I'm just a little, I mean, I totally respect Harvard Westlake and their desires to kind of move and expand, but I'm just always puzzled that we you know, here I live near Coldwater Canyon, and we have their current sports field here with their lights and the noise and whatnot. And I'm just wondering, I would just encourage the school to bring forth a reason why we're moving into the Weddington. Is there a purpose of consolidation of your sporting events and your program? Because as a resident of Coldwater Canyon, it really is intrusive as far as its impact on the hillside with our local wildlife here and everything. We have lights, noise, crowds, screams, and here we are, celebrating the life of P-22, for example, which was a tragic loss. But yet now we're talking about we're moving into another area, which is Weddington. So I would just encourage the school to say, look, we're gonna we need obviously a program, a physical education, but the expansion for absolutely no reason other than the need to expand just seems really it's not clear to me. So be it in Weddington, be it on the canyon and Coldwater Canyon.
Next time, please conclude your comments.
Think of something that actually gives the community, not just Coldwater or Weddington, a benefit that is actually tangible. Thank you.
Next, Ben Waller, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Ben Waller. I'm a Studio City resident. I fully support the motion to oppose Harvard Westlake campus expansion. That's all I have to say.
Next, Alex Tonneson, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Alex Tonneson. I'm the vice president of our homeowners association and live a block and a half from Weddington. I support the motion to oppose the Riverfront Park. I'd like to call it the Riverfront Parking Lot, in fact. I think that Harvard Westlake has demonstrated that it does not care about the community, and I strongly oppose this development. Thank you.
Abby King, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Abby King. I'm a legislative affairs manager with VICA, the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, and I'm here to speak in support of the River Park project. Harvard Westlake understands that this property has a long history in Studio City, and they've demonstrated that sensitivity within their plans. That's why the development of the Harvard Westlake River Park campus will be guided by key design principles and commitments, which will ensure that the site remains open, green, and publicly accessible. The elements of the property that have historic significance will be thoughtfully retained for reuse in their plan. This is a forward-thinking project that will have multiple benefits for not just Studio City, but the entire San Fernando Valley. I implore the Neighborhood Council to reconsider its strategy in opposing this project. The Neighborhood Council is finding obscure reasons to deny the construction of the new privately financed park. We understand that the Neighborhood Council's reasoning behind their opposition to this project relates to the project not being carbon neutral. I will note that there is currently no requirement that claims building projects in Los Angeles need to be carbon neutral. Therefore, the Neighborhood Council's opposition to this project rests on what we believe is a minor issue that should not prevent the development of a project that would greatly benefit the residents of Studio City. Thank you.
Lori Cohn, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for holding this meeting. I agree with many who spoke before me. I support the ad hoc committee's motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake development of Weddington Golf and Tennis. It would be a disaster, the greenhouse effect, the artificial turf, the traffic, the noise, the disruption of a place that people have gathered and needed to use as senior citizens and children, etc., for many years and hope to for years to come. So please consider this and please continue to oppose this development. Thank you.
Adam Josephs, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm a resident of the Laurel Canyon area, and I want to express my strong support for the project and oppose the motion. I am myself a golfer. I just want to refer back to the woman a few speakers ago who mentioned she's a senior citizen who golfs in plays tennis and can't afford a club but wants to play at the park. And as a golfer, I could say with strong confidence that you can't drive, a mile in the valley without coming across a golf course that's, pretty much empty. I can't remember the last time I had to wait for a tee time. Los Angeles is, as far as as an environmentalist, you've been hearing about golf courses as, kind of an environmental blight on the city of Los Angeles. Even the White House a couple years ago issued the White House Economic Advisory Council issued a statement condemning Los Angeles's golf courses. So I say that the Harvard Westlake River Park will be a much better use for me and my family, and we have plenty of other places to play golf. And finally, I'm not concerned about the turf. I think, with the drought conditions we're currently facing in Los Angeles, I think that the turf will be a much better solution to the environmental issues we face than the current golf course at Weddington. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Martha Gemin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for holding the meeting. I just want to say that I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park project. I think that I can't say more than that, except for that I think that that type of school needs to teach people community values, not continual expansion with privately funded blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
Caller ending in 848. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, I'm calling in support of the River Park. I live in the Weddington area and I want to urge the neighborhood council to act in good faith on this project. I want to go back to the turf argument and point out that the city of Los Angeles has 39 parks that use artificial turf for their athletic fields. And then another school in Studio City is currently installing a new turf field. Artificial turf obviously saves a lot of water, but it also is more durable and allows greater use of the fields, including after rainstorms. Do you really believe that the city is going to reject a project on the basis of artificial turf when they install artificial turf on their own parks all the time? I urge us to have a constructive conversation about the issues that will really matter to the city. And I hope the neighborhood council will support this project, as it will be a very good amenity for students and neighbors to enjoy. Thank you.
Scott, may I ask a quick question of you?
Sure, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, I know it's not required, but do we have, are we taking any kind of notes of how many pros, how many cons, just for interest?
Sure, I'm jotting down some short notes based on each speaker so far.
Thank you.
And we also have a bunch of emails that I'll announce the total after this public comment closes. So we'll go to caller ending in 401. Unmute yourself. You have 90 seconds.
Hello, good evening, and thank you, members. I was born and raised in Studio City. I'm raising my family and my children right here in Studio City in the Valley. I play tennis, play soccer, I play golf. This is a park, not a factory. This is a park, not condos. This is a privately funded and privately maintained tennis and recreation campus. I can continue to come with my children, enjoy tennis, enjoy the putting green, and most importantly, surprise them with a hot dog from the beloved cafe at Studio City, what will become the River Park. I support the Harvard Westlake River Park, and I support an artificial field. I just came from one this evening with my daughter, a City of Los Angeles field, and you would never know that it had rained. It is terrific. And what is being proposed for our community is unbelievable. We should be blessed, to feel blessed, to have the Harvard Westlake River Park. And if they do half of what they do on campus right now for people in the San Fernando Valley, then this will certainly be a tremendous addition. Please support the Harvard Westlake River Park and oppose tonight's motion. Thank you.
Anne Marie, go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. I live in Studio City. I've lived here for 36 years, and I live near Weddington, and I support the River Park. For many years, many of my neighbors in Studio City have been concerned that this property would be developed into housing, commercial, or retail buildings and would no longer be an open space. So a community group was formed called Save LA River Open Space. And that is what Harvard Westlake has done with the plans for River Park. The school has stepped in and saved this land as recreational open space for generations of future students and community members to continue to enjoy. I'd also like to add that just after the property was purchased, I was at a community meeting that was not very well attended, and there was a gentleman there who's a Weddington family descendant, and he said that their whole family had agreed that they wanted to sell the property. So I think it's good that they sold it to Harvard Westlake rather than to a developer. I urged the neighborhood council to support River Park and the preservation of this wonderful open space in Studio City. Thank you.
Next, Charlotte Robbins, go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. My father graduated from Harvard Military Boys Academy in 1954. I personally have grown up in Studio City and have worked there since 1977. Currently, there are 16 tennis courts at Weddington that are continuously booked, where the teachers have to spend excessive amounts of money to reserve a court to be able to teach the community. This project is going to cut down the courts to only 8 courts, thereby leaving not very many courts for the community. These people who are saying that they'll be able to play with their children on these courts are mistaken, because these courts are going to be used for the students. Currently, right now, with the 16 courts, the high school is using 12 out of the 16, thereby leaving only 4 courts for the public to use, from 3 to 6 on most days. And even during the summertime, there's hardly any courts as well. So I am in full support of not having the River Park go through, and I thank you. And I know many of you here on this call who have opposed and supported it, so I say hi to you all. Thank you.
Next, Janine, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am in favor of the ad hoc motion that opposes the development by Harvard Westlake of the historic Weddington golf and tennis for all the reasons noted in the motion and more. The DEIR presented to the city, once studied, made it clear in black and white that the shared space, quote unquote, with the community Harvard Westlake promised is truly like smoke and mirrors. Everything is at their sole discretion, and the true public usage is simply non-existent. There is no park. There is a trail around the perimeter for the public. I stand with the overwhelming majority of my neighborhood and the 15,000 Angelenos who signed a petition in support of protecting this beloved site and saying no to this aggressive development. And to just make a point, somebody said that we're so lucky that Weddington didn't become high-rise apartments or condos. Weddington was never going to be developed. It is not zoned for high-rise or apartments or condos. And that's why all of the developers through the years who tried to, in fact, do that all failed. So thank you so much.
Margot Reimer, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I enthusiastically support the Harvard Westlake River Park project. I have lived in Studio City for 23 years. I was a member of the original committee formed in July 2000 in order to protest the proposed plan to build over 200 high-end condos on the golf and tennis property. And at that time, it felt very real that the property would be developed. All they needed to do is get the zoning changed. So I was very concerned about the loss of recreational and open space, among other things. When Harvard Westlake acquired the property, I breathed a sigh of relief because I thought at last we have a plan that will preserve and actually increase green space, and it will be free to the public as well as serve Harvard Westlake students. This is a huge change from the many proposals proposed over the years. It's safe to say, I think, that no other developer would design a plan that is as thoughtful and as beautiful as this one. At the SCRA meeting I attended in October of 2019, a member of the Weddington family confirmed this, saying gleefully that he would have built condos, quote, out to the sidewalk, end quote, if he had been able to. I feel confident that Harvard Westlake's plan for the River Park will keep this beautiful space open and green, and that Harvard Westlake's careful stewardship of the property will truly allow it to continue to be Studio City's crown jewel for generations to come. Thank you.
Anna, go ahead, please.
I support the River Park, and I am a neighbor of Weddington living in Studio City. I realize the neighborhood council has a reputation for saying no to new projects, to fighting progress, and to opposing change in the community. Can you imagine if the city agreed with the neighborhood council every time it opposed a project? Nothing would get built and nothing would change. This community needs to embrace the future and welcome changes that improve the quality of life here and bring more opportunity for more people. In that spirit, I hope the neighborhood council will join me in supporting the River Park. Thank you.
Person named Home. Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Andrea Scher. I've been living in Studio City for 37 years. I support the ad hoc motion to oppose Harvard Westlake development. Harvard Westlake's the wrong project for this property. From a beautiful, lush, natural environment used by the greater Los Angeles community to concrete, decomposed granite and artificial turf that's a huge health hazard. All of this for 900 school children who already have all these facilities on their school property. Thank you.
Janine Johnson, go ahead, please. Janine, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Johnson, and I'm a 20-year resident of Studio City. It is a pleasure and honor to speak on behalf of my personal support for Harvard Westlake's River Park project. I'm also an alumni parent of the school and have witnessed firsthand the exceptional and community-minded care, maintenance, and administration of the school and its grounds. And I have full confidence that Harvard Westlake will perform the same conscientious stewardship over River Park as they do at their other two campuses. I'm enthusiastic. River Park is a rare opportunity for the Valley to get a new park. Yes, it will have some restrictions. School events will take priority because it's still privately owned. But I find it very generous that these world-class facilities will be open to our community regularly, with some features open to the public all day long. This hasn't been true in the past. I hope the neighborhood council will support this new park for the Valley. We're not going to get any more parks like this. This is privately financed and free for the public to use and enjoy. Thank you.
Cheryl, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to say that I'm in support of the River Park. I think the biggest thing is people keep saying that Harvard Westlake it's smoke and mirrors, that the community is going to be able to use the park. But if you look at the current campus at Harvard Westlake, hundreds of people in the neighborhood use their track every week, and they open up their campus to the community. And that is going to be the same thing that happens at the River Park. LAUSD across all of San Fernando Valley has fields and tracks, and they're gated and locked up, and nobody gets to use them. So I hope that the community council votes to support the Harvard Westlake River Park. Thank you.
Miri, go ahead.
Hi, on behalf of my family, I'd like to express our enthusiastic support for Harvard Westlake's River Park project. We've lived here in the neighborhood for over 11 years, and when we moved from New York, we specifically chose this area for two reasons: the excellent local schools and the walkability of the neighborhood. And we firmly believe the River Park will improve both. Despite living down the street from Weddington, we never really used the facility except when my daughter briefly took tennis lessons, and we were so underwhelmed by the experience that we never went back. There was zero sense of community, and it felt very empty, cold, and unwelcoming to us. Several years ago, we heard that Weddington was going to be sold and possibly replaced by condos, and we were extremely concerned by the strain on the community's infrastructure, particularly the public schools. We were so relieved when that did not come to pass, and so happy when it was sold to a school instead. Hosting practices and games and occasional events is so much less impactful and disruptive than many of the other alternatives that have been presented. We've seen the proposed plans for the River Park and cannot wait for the space to be transformed. Whether it's taking a stroll with some coffee or having a new green space to walk our dog, there will now be a large walkable area that our family can actually use and enjoy. We have no doubt that the River Park will be beautiful for as long as Harvard Westlake owns it. Their track record for campus maintenance and beautification is stellar, and we hope this project will move forward quickly so we can all begin enjoying what we know will be a magnificent space for many, many years to come, not just for the students of Harvard Westlake, but for the entire community. Thank you.
Next time, thank you.
Ara, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm a longtime resident of Studio City and also a partner with a global consulting firm, an entrepreneur, and a board member of a nonprofit. I say all that because I'm in full support of the motion and vehemently opposed to the overdevelopment of Weddington. As a business investment, there is little to no return on investment for the residents of Studio City. There is only a benefit to the students of Harvard Westlake. As a philanthropist and a contribution to beautify the community, I do not agree with the plans, and the turf and the current design will not benefit the community. It will not improve it. It will actually be a detriment. And for that reason, I commend the ad hoc committee, the research that's been done, the presentation, and I stand with my fellow residents in opposition of the overdevelopment of Harvard Westlake and support the motion that's put before you today. Thank you.
Adam Stern, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I live on Goodland Avenue in Studio City, and I support the River Park. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood, and the DEIR produced by outside experts confirms what is clearly obvious. There will be no significant operational impacts to the environment by replacing a golf course with athletic fields, a gym, a track, and a pool. In addition to doing no harm to the environment, the River Park will instead provide significant environmental benefits. Starting with water, the facility will use a lot less water than the existing golf course, and the water reclamation system will clean up any runoff before it enters the LA River. The landscaping will be native, requiring less water and supporting greater biodiversity. There will be solar panels producing renewable energy, and the fields will not use massive quantities of pesticides and herbicides that the golf course currently requires. The numerous environmental benefits of the project are worthy of the community's support. I look forward to enjoying this property with my growing family, and I hope all of you will support it. Thank you very much.
Samuel, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Marsha Okonovich, and I support the River Park project. I have lived in the Studio City area with my family for the past almost 10 years and have really enjoyed all the parks around Studio City. And I truly believe that a lot more people will get use of the Riverside Park as the Harvard Westlake has proposed than they do Weddington now. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we will agree that not that many people play golf, and golf courses do require a lot of water and are not very environmentally savvy, to say the least. So I think that River Park project will not only allow more amenities for the community to use, but it will also allow for the Harvard Westlake students to be more integrated into the Studio City community, which I honestly will think will benefit the community at the end.
Are you finished? Is that it? Thank you.
Yes.
Elaine Kim, go ahead, please.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Kim. My husband, Rick Serini, and I are 30-plus year residents of Laurel Canyon, very, very active in the community. Rick as a longtime board member of the Laurel Canyon Association, and I as the founder of a neighborhood gardening group called Plant Native Laurel Canyon. We are committed California native plant gardeners and sustainability advocates. You might even say we're activists. We both strongly support Harvard Westlake River Park. We know that this River Park project will see the exclusive planting of California native plants, which, as everybody knows, is so important. Indeed, we would say that it's necessary for a healthy local ecology, for the protection of local wildlife, from the littlest insects to the largest apex predators, such as our owls, our hawks, and our mountain lions. Please join us in supporting River Park because of its many environmental benefits to the Studio City community.
John, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
I'm impressed with the thoughtful and wide range planning and discussion I've heard and the past presentations I've seen of the Harvard Westlake Park project. I support Harvard Westlake's planning for this campus and look forward to being able to one day enjoy the new amenities on site. My wife and I have lived in the same Studio City home for 39 years, and I've jogged and walked past the existing golf course thousands of times. I've always enjoyed the striking green landscape, including mature trees, the rolling hills, but I've never once in 39 years, set foot on the property. I don't play golf, I don't play tennis, and I don't feel invited as it exists today. I've only been able to see this amazing slice of nature through a chain link fence. With the River Park completed, that will change. I look forward to one day being able to walk onto the property and enjoy nature's beauty and the many improvements this project will bring. Thanks.
Kim Tashman, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say that I do support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River project. I'm finding it a bit frustrating listening to many of the comments because I think some of the phrases are canned or ill-informed. There was a local symposium about the damage the turf would do, how much water is actually required using the turf. It's more, in fact, because of how hot it gets. I think people need to really look at what the facts are. I'm also frustrated in the fact that we're even this far in the project. Harvard Westlake purchased a precious piece of land that was identified as historical prior to their purchase. It had been identified by Survey LA, it is zoned agriculture, and the Los Angeles City Council right now has a lawsuit pending against it for illegally removing terms from the historic nomination to allow them to move forward with this project. It is not a park. They have options to build elsewhere. They have a baseball field in Encino. They could find locations out there to build this facility. It is not preserving green space. It is just the opposite. I appreciate the time that you have all taken to do the research. This project should not move forward at all, in my opinion, and I thank you for your time.
Molly, go ahead.
Good evening. I wish to express my support for River Park. I think the school's ownership and plan for the River Park is the best, or possibly the best outcome for those of us who want this preserved as open space. And zoning laws change all the time, especially to create more housing, especially in Los Angeles. So I think it's possible that if the school is not allowed to proceed with their plans, which I think are beautiful and take into consideration the community and the open space, that I think that what could possibly happen is this will end up being condos, apartments, housing, and just industrial urban sprawl. So I support Harvard Westlake, and thank you.
Beverly, go ahead.
I don't suppose you can hear me, can you?
We can hear you.
Okay, have you been able to hear me this whole time? Because I can't figure this out. I'm so sorry. I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River project. I could go into all of my emotional reasons, which would not really be effective right now. I think we're too far along, but I am on the side with Charlotte Robbins. I have seen how Harvard Westlake has twisted things in the past couple of years, all in terms of very disingenuous activities and ways they phrase things and ways they work things. I know it's hard to get a court now as a tennis player. It will be pretty darn near impossible if it goes down to 8 courts. The length of time it would take to make this happen would, I imagine, be 3 to 5 years at least. And right now, after lockdown and social distancing, I think it would destroy the community at hand to have nothing there for that many years while they're doing all this construction and changing the whole dynamic of that area. I think it would be detrimental to all of our psyches, particularly mine. I will have no reason to come to the court area right now to walk. I wanted to play tennis as I aged. I wanted to play golf when I aged, and that's gone now, I guess, from the sounds of it. I find it really sad. I thought it was the best community social place in the area of Los Angeles that I could use personally. And I want to support the cause to oppose it. Thank you.
Steve Hirsch. Go ahead, Steve. Steve, can you unmute yourself?
How's that?
We hear you.
Okay, so sorry. My name is Steve Hirsch. I'm a second-generation resident of Studio City for over 50 years. I support the Studio City Neighborhood Council's motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake Athletic Facility development. I'm greatly disappointed that of all the meetings we've had attended by Harvard Westlake administration, they've been under the pretense of collecting community input for their development plan. The results of the meeting to date have brought no changes to the plan or compliance or reflection of any community input. The benefits to Studio City claimed by Harvard Westlake by the proposed athletic facility are undefined and non-existent. I pray that the people who think they're going to have access and a view revisit the plan that's presented to us now. It will be a fortress to protect the students inside, which it deserves to be. But the community deserves open space. Thank you.
Chip, did you have something to chime in?
I do, sir. Thank you. This is Chip Meehan. I just want to make sure that, and thank you everyone again for your comment and for taking the time. I just want to make sure everyone understands what we're commenting on. and that the ad hoc committee had a very narrow focus. The motion today that the board will vote on is to oppose the proposal to develop the property as it currently stands with the artificial turf and because of the greenhouse gas emissions, the scale of the project. It is not an absolute black and white for or against the project. We are tasked with commenting on the proposal in front of us. So it's a more narrow focus than keep it or lose it.
Thank you. So if the public wants to focus more on the items that are actually contained in the motion, that would probably be more beneficial at this time. That being said, Danny, go ahead.
Thank you. I grew up in the neighborhood. I've lived in Studio City for many years, and I support the River Park project. I find the ad hoc committee cherry picking a few concerns instead of looking at the project as a whole to be very concerning. Somehow artificial turf is now the reason to oppose the entire project. Well, I disagree. Artificial turf is used at nearly 40 city parks, including parks in Council District 4. My young sons play soccer on artificial turf in Sherman Oaks multiple times a week. The Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium was played on artificial turf. The DWP will even give you $5 a square foot to use artificial turf instead of grass on your own lawn. Why? Because it saves water. Let's stop grasping at straws and let's support the River Park, which will be a wonderful place for students and our community to enjoy. Thank you.
Basil, go ahead. Basil, you're unmuted. Go ahead. We can come back to Basil. He's having technical difficulties. Priscilla, go
Hi,
ahead.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was speaking on mute. So I'm a neighbor of the property. I live less than 1,000 feet from Weddington. I go there with my daughters to play tennis. We've done that for many years. I fully support the Harvard Westlake River Park project as it currently, the plans that are currently submitted. I've looked at them with precision. You know, the reality is this is America. The school owns the land. It's fully within its rights to do what it, you know, it's fully within its rights to decide that they don't want to continue to operate, you know, a water wasting, money losing golf course. I was driving by a few days ago. You know, actually I drive by every day, but a few days ago it was a torrential downpour, as everybody knows, and there was water that was above the sidewalk in front of Weddington. It was so ridiculously dangerous. I mean, it was just a huge flood right on that corner of you know, Woodbridge and Whitsett. The school can close the golf course whenever it wants. This is America. It's privately owned. The notion that everybody's acting like this is some government property is ridiculous. I mean, this is not North Korea. When this property was for sale years ago, I was looking for a house on Teasdale, actually, around that time. And I specifically remember plans potentially to build medical buildings, to build housing. And with the homeless crisis, what it is,
Please conclude your comments.
with the homeless crisis, what it is, this easily could have been made into housing. You know, the bottom line is the city, this is phenomenal for the community. It's phenomenal for families. It's phenomenal for any honest broker.
Priscilla, go ahead, please.
Hi, I have been living in Laurel Canyon for 15 years plus, and I fully support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park project. Everyone's talking about how this is going to be a boon for students and the community, but like I can barely reserve a court anymore these days because Harvard Westlake has them all booked up. and my children will not be going to Harvard Westlake. So I don't see, I mean, I can see this being a great place for Harvard Westlake students. And I just feel like personally, this is just another example of a small group of privileged people being able to take control of controlling the future of a neighborhood without actually being inclusive to the community. And I actually have, my husband is here with me too.
Yeah, I went to Harvard, and it was one of those privileged few to go to that lovely, beautiful school. But the people there and the school itself already are afforded so many privileges beyond what many communities have the capacity to give their constituents, citizens, and students and everything else. So it's of the rarefied privilege already, and then to take this community which caters to so many different people, ethnicities, all sorts of people from all different walks of this town. We live over the hill, people come from all over, and it forms these communities.
That's time. Please conclude your comments.
Part of what make this city great, and to take away from that is just another sort of very privileged thing for rich folks.
Caller ending in 814. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jody Plegeman, and I've lived in Studio City for more than 20 years. My family's been playing tennis at Weddington and also golf for as long as we've lived here. And our family fully supports Harvard Westlake River Park. By all standards, no matter how you define sustainable, the River Park is more sustainable than the current situation at Weddington Golf and Tennis. The River Park is going to use millions of gallons less water than the current golf course does, and they plan to install the largest stormwater capture and reuse system of its kind in the city, which after last week we could certainly use. And despite the rain that we've had, we are still in the most severe drought in our state's modern history, and it's inconceivable that anyone would argue that a golf course with all of its water use and all of the other golf courses that are public that we have in our area, plus the pesticides and herbicides that are used, is somehow more sustainable than this thoughtfully designed multi-benefit facility that's going to capture stormwater, have native plants, and invest in solar power. So my family supports the Harvard Westlake River Park as a more sustainable vision for the future of this site and Studio City. Thank you.
D. Wokel, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm Diane Wolke. I'm a board member for Safe Healthy Playing Fields. I previously submitted extensive written comments on this project. I'm speaking, and I am a neighbor here in Southern California. I am speaking in support of the ad hoc committee's findings and opposing this project. The DEIR, the public comment period, is open for 45 days in these instances to answer a previously asked question before we got started this evening. It does not address all of the issues, clearly. These synthetic turf fields emit massive quantities of methane and ethylene for the 450 plus years it will take for them to decompose, by the way. They are not recyclable. They require immense amounts of water to clean them, to cool them. They do not break down the bacteria from the bodily fluids and wildlife droppings that will be on these fields as natural grass fields do. Courses and playing fields can be managed organically. You do not need to use herbicides and pesticides. I keep public record documents, and to date, we have 21 different PFAS chemicals that have been found in various fields across the country that have been tested. Several of these are currently on the California Prop 65 list. People are not reading the newspapers even, it seems, let alone doing their
That's time.
research on
Please
these
conclude your
fields.
comments.
Fields over the hill from you have been melting and have been closed down this past summer. Thank you.
Chris, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hi there. Thank you for the time. My name is Chris Specht, and I just quickly want to say I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park development. Thank you very much.
Next, Damaris. Go ahead, please. Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello?
Go ahead, speaker. We hear you.
So I would also like to comment in favor of the River Park project. I'm a neighbor in the neighborhood, and I think a lot of people opposing are mostly people who are homeowners, but as a tenant, as a resident, I think we often get overlooked. I think of the potential of this place like a backyard in a lot of ways, right? The ability I'll have to be on there for more than just say tennis or golf. So I see a large potential for this, right? Meeting with friends or even just walking my dog through. I appreciate the level of security that will be available just on various occasions, even just walking in the neighborhood here, it's often felt safe. I've come across, unfortunately, people in the that are homeless, perhaps, who've actually, it has felt unsafe on various occasions. So I like the prospect of a certain level of security, of just being able to use that as a more open space for someone like me and for other people who are tenants and residents in the neighborhood. So I am in favor of this project. Thank you.
Tim Smith, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. My husband and I are longtime neighbors of the Weddington Golf and Tennis property. We attended the October 1, 2019 SCRA meeting at the Christian Science Center to hear the proposal from Harvard Westlake about these plans that they have for the current Weddington Golf and Tennis property, the new River Park campus. After seeing this presentation, we could not support this project more fully. The improvements Harvard Westlake plans for the neighborhood, creating a walking park, installing a filtration system to deal with all the runoff water, building subterranean parking to alleviate the parking congestion, just to name a few of the many benefits, are well thought and impressive. That they will remove the environmentally unsound trees and replace them with more eco-friendly trees is also great for our air quality. We hope that we can count on your support for this neighborhood-friendly project, and please oppose this motion. Thank you.
Jen, go ahead.
Thank you. I live on Whitsett, across the street from Weddington Golf and Tennis. I strongly support the Harvard Westlake River Park. I urge you to support the project because it is a net positive for the environment, will benefit the community of Studio City. The River Park will preserve urban open space and will provide more recreational amenities for the Studio City community than is currently existing on the site, which is, as other people have mentioned, unfriendly at best. It will create a safe space populated with native plants where I can walk my dogs around a secured and landscaped 3/4 mile trail with dog cleanup stations. Cannot wait. This new trail will be a wonderful amenity for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Caller ending in 874. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. I have lived in Studio City for more than 20 years, and I strongly support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake Sports Complex. Thank you for having this meeting.
Sam, go ahead, please.
Thank you. It's been disappointing to hear that the opponents to the project seem to be ignoring or denying the reality of the situation. As one of the prior callers mentioned, I mean, the reality is Harvard Westlake bought the property and they're the owner. And as the owner, they can utilize the property as they choose, which would include, replacing the golf course with a facility that supports the school's educational and extracurricular programs, as well as being available to the community and community groups. Given Harvard Westlake's proposed plans, Weddington is not going to be saved. That's the reality. I acknowledge that would be disappointing for those hoping to save Weddington in its present form. However, this can be an opportunity for those opponents to work with the school and have input into the design of the final project. And the neighborhood council should reject the motion and support the project so it can work with the school to shape the River Park project to benefit the community. Thank you.
Sarah Boyd, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Sarah. I am a Studio City homeowner, and I appreciate the ad hoc committee's work in creating this motion and the time they took in enumerating their concerns with the project. I particularly want to support the motion's suggestion about the CUP and the necessity that any project that might be approved be contained within a comprehensive CUP for the Harvard Westlake's upper school campus. This enormous project greatly increases the school's footprint within Studio City and creates another multi-acre site, which would be operating as a privilege in a residential area with far-reaching impacts on the neighboring hillsides. Other private schools, such as the Brentwood School, have had to abide by a comprehensive CUP even when their campus site was not contiguous. The school's comprehensive CUP, should this project proceed, must address significant impacts that the new property and the existing property has and will have on the neighborhood. It should include strict limits on parking, mandated carpool numbers, a freeze on enrollment at its current numbers, and strict limits on nighttime events, because we all know there's noise and light intrusion from those events. The school has operated and expanded for almost a century with only piecemeal approvals from the city rather than a comprehensive CUP. If there were ever a time or a project that necessitates a comprehensive CUP that our community deserves, this is it. Thank you.
Nora Doyle, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Nora, and I first of all want to say that I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River project as it stands, and that is the important phrase. I want to thank Chip for trying to make people understand what this meeting is really about. It's not the choice of not having the Harvard Westlake project or having condos. That is a false choice that a lot of people are presenting. I am not necessarily against Harvard Westlake developing property, but I do not understand how any parent or any academic institution that is supposed to be concerned about the safety of their students would be willing to use artificial turf with what we are now learning in research about PFAs and PFOs, the fact that these toxic chemicals are called forever chemicals, and they will never leave the environment and will be leaching into our freshwater system. Even the people who are for the project, I do not understand why you would not want Harvard Westlake to revisit this issue and change that particular piece of the project. Thank you very much.
Caller ending in 444. Go ahead, please. Four, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello. Thank you very much. I'll make it real quick. I'm sorry I had trouble getting in. I just want to say thank you for all the work you're doing. My name is Eva Charney. I've lived in Studio City since 1996. I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River project and all the work you've been doing and everything that I've heard tonight. I stand with my fellow residents in supporting the motion to oppose. Thank you very much.
Caller ending in 890.
Yeah, hi. My name is Greg Kriedemeyer. I'm a Studio City resident, and I would like to ask the Studio City Neighborhood Council Board to please vote yes and pass the motion from the ad hoc committee. Thank you.
Patty Kirby, go ahead, please.
Hi, Patty Kirby. Did you hear me now? Hello? Okay, Patty Kirby, Studio City, living here for over 40 years. Thanks to the ad hoc committee for their extensive research. And I oppose the Harvard Westlake project and support the environmental issues discussed in the motion. And I hope that the other people that are on the opposite side could just pay attention to the detail. I have to say that Harvard Westlake has been misleading the public, calling this a done deal, basically, and it is not. It is far from done. We have a lot of work to do, and I hope that you all pay attention to the details in the plan, especially the environmental issues. Thank you.
John Newby, go ahead.
Hi, it's actually Erica Fox. I support the motion to vote against the river, whatever it's called. Anyway, which is a misnomer all into itself. And for all of the environmental reasons, if Harvard Westlake were a good neighbor, they would not want to pollute our community. I love the guy who said the environmentally bad trees. I'm not quite sure how trees are environmentally bad, but we also have to remember that they will take down all those trees. As someone who had children who swam in a club at Harvard Westlake, I am well aware that you are not allowed to freely roam the campus and do whatever you want. And the truth is that as somebody who was not a Harvard Westlake student, if there were ever issues, we were the first people to be kicked off of campus, even though we paid our dues. I think that, here, hang on a second, I have to go to my notes now. Weddington Golf and Tennis is an amenity for all of Los Angeles. And I agree with the person who said, who went to Harvard, that those people in that school can afford to go anywhere. They can afford to play at private clubs, and they can access all of these.
That's time. Please conclude your comments.
Okay, and the people of Los Angeles don't have that money, and they need this property. So I strongly support this motion.
Gentile Phoenix. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Gentle Phoenix. Thank you so much for having this meeting and all you guys are doing with all your research. I fully support the motion to oppose. I just wanted to say a couple things in regards to what other people were saying, even though what your the meeting here tonight is about, that the supporting or not supporting of the motion of your research. What people don't realize is that 75,000 people a year. I don't know why people are saying it's unwelcoming or whatever. Over 75,000 people a year use Weddington. They go and they play golf, or they play frisbee golf, whatever it is, tennis. I'm a single person. I've lived here for over 13 years, and I go there by myself. I meet people I never ever would meet in all walks of life. There's kids there, there's old people there, there's people that just come and they meet people at the cafe and have food. So it just, to me, is like, you think you're just gonna be able to go walk your dog. There's a whole river walk that tree people redid that's right there that is gonna be obstructed by this project. And that's part of what the research is saying. Hey, it's not a done deal the way it is. So I thank you so much for all you're doing. I really wish people would educate themselves
Please
more.
conclude your comments.
Thank you. And thank you.
Scott D. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks to the council members and the committee members. I'm joining to add my strong support for the River Park and request that the council reject the committee motion. I think this entire project has really been remarkably inclusive. I know folks have used both sides of this argument tonight, but I think, firstly, the rightful landowner here is inviting the community to participate in this project, which I find remarkable. They don't need to, they've chosen to include us. Secondly, I think the facilities themselves are more inclusive. We're adding open space and trails, benches, and additional sports complex in addition to tennis and the putting green. So this is going to better serve our community. Third, I think this process has been inclusive, right? Several of us have been on these calls for years now. And someone else said that the plans have not changed. They have changed. They've changed multiple times. And I think the willingness to hear our voice and address our concerns is inclusive. We're not going to have a perfect solution that fits everyone's needs. But to top it all off, as someone mentioned earlier, we as a community are getting allowed to be included here, and it's costing us $0, which I just find remarkable. In closing, I would ask the council to reject this motion. Someone used the term earlier, cherry picking. We're cherry picking one issue. There's a bunch of issues here. And I think we as a community need to be inclusive in consideration. Thanks so much.
Caller ending 560. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I've lived here for 26 years, and I support the motion to oppose the overdevelopment of the misleadingly titled Harvard Westlake River Park. By the way, my name is Marcia. It will benefit the entitled few to the detriment of the entire neighborhood. It will be an environmental and quality of life nightmare for the residents. Weddington has always been a beautiful slice of nature. And to quote Joni Mitchell, "Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Please don't let Harvard Westlake do that to Weddington." Thank you.
Caller ending in 334. Please unmute yourself.
You hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, my name is Jesse. I live right down the block from Weddington. I'm joining this meeting tonight to voice my wholehearted support for the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park project. I think this is a good first step in identifying and recognizing the many flaws of this plan. I thank the ad hoc committee for their work. I think the committee identified a lot of different concerns, including the increase in greenhouse gas production, the severe dangers of artificial turf. On a side note, just listening to this call, it's just shocking. So many callers that have kids of their own who support artificial turf somehow don't understand or simply don't want to understand the dangers of that turf, including that their own kids may be harmed by the effects of playing on the turf, whether that be PFAS, other chemicals, carcinogens, or just experiencing more injuries than natural turf. I also strongly agree with the notion in the committee's findings that the proposed project needs to be evaluated in a way that takes into account the impact of multiple simultaneous development projects in the surrounding area. So I encourage the board to vote yes on the motion before you tonight. The way it currently stands, this project would be catastrophic for our community, and I encourage you to vote in favor of the motion. Thanks again.
Stephanie, go ahead, please. Stephanie, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Stephanie Pollock. I am a native of Studio City, born here and lived here since 1978. My raising a family here and still as a homeowner in the neighborhood. I am in support of the motion of ad hoc opposing what we are calling a river walkway, which I don't think that's going to be any type of a park for us to be using. I want to thank Ad Hoc and everyone who's been doing the research and moving forward in fighting this. I think that the fake grass and removal of the mature, beautiful trees is a detriment to the neighborhood. And like I said, I've learned how to golf in this golf course. I've learned how to play tennis on the tennis courts, and as have my 3 children. It's a multi-generational pastime, and it's from all people of all over Los Angeles and different demographics. And I feel like the people of Harvard Westlake have a wonderful facility they're using already, both in Studio City up on Coldwater as well as in Encino. And I think that they should think more so about the community and less about themselves. Thank you.
Caller ending in 647. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, board members. As someone who's lived in this neighborhood for more than 40 years, I can tell you that Studio City is excited and eager to welcome the Harvard Westlake River Park to our community. The project will preserve and reuse the golf club, cafe, and putting green, all while creating a publicly accessible park with walking paths, jogging trails, and incredible recreational facilities. The property owners are gifting the city of Los Angeles with an incredible public resource while preserving the most iconic parts of the property. For that reason, I embrace this project, and I hope that you will join me in supporting it. Thank you.
Kelsey, go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Kelsey McAllister, and first I want to thank the committee for all of your time and efforts. I wholeheartedly support the motion to oppose Harvard Westlake's proposed river park. I think it's interesting that some people are saying how nice it is of Harvard Westlake to include the community in their plan. And I want to say that they don't have the right to build what they want to build. In 1974, this property was downzoned to agriculture to keep it a golf and tennis recreational facility for the people. And so they wanted to keep it the way it was in perpetuity because they knew that it would benefit the people of Studio City and all over Los Angeles. Because this place has given, not just do people play golf there, they play tennis, frisbee golf, they gather as a community. Like Gentle Phoenix said, it's a welcoming, warm place. If you don't know anybody, you can just go there, and there's not very many places these days that you can say that. It is a jewel of the city, and it is treasured. It is irreplaceable. And I could go on and on about the environmental things. We've already heard so much of that tonight. So in respecting everybody's time, I am just going to say that I support the motion to oppose this plan.
Paul Enright, go ahead.
Church down here. Harvard Westlake representatives got up and made a bunch of promises. It reminded me of 40 years ago when Burbank Airport did the same thing to us. People said with these promises, no lights after 8 o'clock, no athletic events after so-and-so. Some people in the audience said, please put it in writing. What they told us was we can't because it's an informational meeting. That was just what the Burbank Airport told us when they put us in a trick bag 40 years ago. Burbank said we're going to have different runways. We're going to have whisper jets, everything. We said, will you please put it in writing? They used the exact same language. We can't. It's an informational meeting. These fellows that live, these people live right next to the stadium, or it's going to be stadiums, and they're in favor of this project. They don't know what the lights, the noise, the traffic is going to be like because they bought what Harvard Westlake was telling them. For those people who support the river park, get a little group together, go to Harvard Westlake, lay out the list of the promises they made and say, please, we're supporting your project. Please sign these promises you made. They will not do it. I guarantee you they will not do it because they're not going to stick to those promises. Anyway, I obviously oppose this River Park, or whatever they're calling this thing. There was something else I wanted to say, but at any rate, the people who live so close and are so supportive, wait till I start getting athletic events at night. The little fine print somewhere,
And that's time. Please conclude your comments.
in one of their documents, they said, the lights are going to go out at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever it's going to be, unless it's an exceptional circumstance. Well, what?
Rudy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Scott. Good evening. Rudy Melendez, Studio City Neighborhood Council stakeholder, environmental steward, tree loving Republican. I appreciate the work that this neighborhood council and this ad hoc committee is doing. I support their motion in opposition of the Harwood Westlake's River Park project as it stands. But also I oppose the project wholeheartedly in its entirety. I want to thank many of the stakeholders that have called in tonight who oppose this project. Not all of those people that called in do I always agree with, but I think this is a terrible idea. I like good ideas that help people and make money. This is a bad idea that costs money and hurts people. This is the most important land use issue that the San Fernando Valley faces and will face for the next 100 years. Taking down old growth trees is just shameful. Harvard Westlake can build this park anywhere they like. Why don't they consider Valley Plaza Park or someplace that could use the development money that they have, because they certainly have deep pockets. So I just want to support this ad hoc committee and its motion. And I hope that people will recognize this is a bad deal for Studio City and every elected official that's turned a blind eye to this project should be shamed in its eternity. Where's Friedman? Where's Horvath? Where are you? Thank you so much.
Richard, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Richard Granite. We live actually diagonally opposite the third tee of the golf course. So literally we're on the corner of Bel Air and Valley Spring, and I don't think there's anyone nearer to the golf course than we are. I'm conscious of what Mr. Meehan said. You know, it's really we're talking about now that the potential toxicity of the turf. Well, I haven't done my own research on that, but if it is carcinogenic, we're first in line. We are literally 50 yards from the golf course. On another point, you know, the noise, the lights, and what about the construction? The years of construction. We live literally yards from this site, and we're going to have, you know, 3 years of noise and dirt, and you know, when this construction is going on, no one's really talked about that. The other thing I want to say is that when this first came up, the leaders of Harvard Westlake actually came to a neighborhood house opposite us with kind of coerce us to go and get involved, get on the bandwagon. And they said there would be no games there. It was only practice fields, and there would be no bleachers and no lights. So you cannot trust them because they've totally gone back on that. And just finally, I want to say that, you know, in this era of, you know, technology and change, what a lovely thing to preserve this historical site for as long as possible. I mean, history is important. And I really want to.
And that's time. Please conclude your comments.
I want to express my support for supporting the motion to oppose the development. Thank you.
Andrea E., go ahead.
Hi there. I have lived in the Valley for 53 years and specifically in Studio City for 18 years. I strongly oppose the Harvard Westlake Athletics Facility, which is being referred to as a river park. Harvard Westlake has two beautiful locations with built-out sports facilities in our canyons that can be used to support nonprofits and other organizations. The only people who will benefit from this project are Harvard Westlake families and their alumni. They have already changed costs to the public and given priority to their students and alumni. Tearing out the grass and existing trees and replacing it with turf is not just an environmental issue. For those of you with young children, speaking on behalf of turf, I have 2 teenage sons who have played multiple sports in the Valley for the last 13 years. There is a huge difference between heat on both turf and grass. The heat from the turf will be no less than 30 degrees hotter than on grass. Playing on turf, there is less give. It doesn't absorb the force, which makes injury more likely. Just because there are multiple turf fields in the Valley doesn't make this project acceptable. Those who don't attend the school and think that they will benefit from this build out will unfortunately only learn after the fact the hard way. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We're getting close to, actually, we passed the 90 minutes. We'll continue till 9 o'clock because we don't have unlimited time. Then we're going to go to the applicant. So with that in mind, Sarah, go ahead, please.
Hi, I support the motion to oppose the Harvard Westlake River Park project. I've been working in Studio City for 23 years. I've played tennis at Weddington for most of my life. Let's get real. This will not be a river park. This will only be an athletic facility for Harvard Westlake students and faculty, and will be an environmental disaster with all the artificial turf that's been proven to contain toxic substances. There are 16 courts currently, and it's hard to get a tennis court now. Think of what they are proposing, 8 courts. These courts will only be available for Harvard Westlake students. Has anyone considered the trickle-down effect? It's the many tennis and golf pros who rely on this center for their livelihood, the thousands of people they teach every day, the community who plays there on a weekly basis, and the grounds people who work there. This has always been a place for the community, and if you think it will continue to be, Harvard Westlake is lying to you. It's a true shame. Thank you.
Susan Brooks, go ahead, please. Susan, please unmute yourself. Okay, we will go to the iCloud.com address. Your turn, go ahead. Unmute yourself. I see those two are having technical problems. Dan.
There we go. Am I okay?
Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
Okay. I have lived in the community of Laurel Canyon, I think 55 years. I've seen a lot of change in Studio City. Both of my children, one of them went to Harvard, one of them went to Westlake. I know what it's like for the public to use it, but it's not going to be in the same vernacular as people think that it's going to be public. Secondly, one of my concerns is the same concern I had when they tried to build their Harvard Westlake parking lot across Coldwater Canyon. And that finally got debunked. I don't think, I came a little late. I don't know if anybody has spoken about the traffic. Somebody mentioned 900 students. You know, if there were 200 students, all those students are coming from their classrooms on Coldwater to Whitsett. They're parking and they're leaving at different times and they're coming at different times. And I think that that in itself is going to affect the community. Not to mention that I agree with all the ad hoc committees proposal. And I feel very sad that people are thinking of this project as a personal privilege that for the community.
And that's
okay. We're on to Dan. Go ahead, Dan, unmute yourself.
Hi, committee. I'd like to let you know that I'm in support of your motion to not have this Harvard Westlake project. I'm very concerned about the turf that's composed of plastic grass blades and crumb rubber, both of which contain toxic substances. PFASs have been linked to kidney and heart damage and cancer, among other health issues. And also, artificial turf still needs pesticides, still needs a lot of water. And I will yield the rest of my time to let you know that I vehemently oppose the project. Thank you.
John, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a 30-year resident of Studio City. I do think this committee has a duty to consider the needs of many versus the wants of a few. It is clear that the public residents will not have any priority over the wants of a limited number of students whose parents are able to afford this very high-priced tuition versus the needs of so many that depend on this space and can't afford high-priced country clubs in other facilities that again cater to a select few. I appreciate the work that this committee is doing, and I'm calling to support the motion to oppose this project. Thank you.
Next up, Lisa, spelled Lissa. Go ahead.
Yes, it's Lissa. I may have changed a little bit, but a few years ago, because I'm on some other committees, I also grew up in Studio City and Sherman Oaks and did use the facilities and enjoy them. But I did read that environmental impact report, and I've read quite a few, and it was the worst I've ever read. I was actually shocked that it wasn't just the artificial turf. That was just part of it. There were so many other things. I mean, I truly, if you're only going to read one thing, I would read that. And apartment houses and all this stuff's coming anyway, as you probably already know. So that's all. I support your motion to oppose.
Keith, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you to the committee for organizing this meeting. I support the motion of the committee to oppose the project. I've been a resident of Studio City for almost 20 years, and for the record, I do not feel blessed by anything Harvard Westlake says or does. Harvard Westlake has not been completely honest with our community throughout this process at all. Harvard Westlake changes their narrative every time they're told this project is not a good idea for our neighborhood, which is a lot. Very sadly, I find there's no way to believe anything Harvard Westlake tells us moving forward. Please remember the project is not a river park. It's a giant multi-sport sports complex and arena not intended to serve the needs of the general Studio City population. Thank you to the committee for investigating every facet of the plan as it stands to make sure that Harvard Westlake doesn't do something to horribly harm our community and our neighborhood for years to come, and then they'll never be able to fix it back again, forever. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you. And we are out of time. We'll go to one more. Matt, you're the last public comment. Go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I just wanted to point out before I make my statement that anybody that goes to Weddington currently, we realize that we are hitting golf balls off of rubber mats and artificial turf. So we're all in trouble, apparently. I've been a resident of Studio City for some time, and I'd like us just to kind of keep things in perspective. The school is the owner of the property, and what they're proposing is not much different than what the current use is. They're just changing some of the sports that they're going to be offered. That's going to work for some of us and not work for others. I urge the community to support a good and responsible project on the site, which is turning the property into a community asset for all of Studio City. I look forward to using all the facilities with my family, including the walking trail that will be open to everybody all day long. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We just don't have the time to continue anymore with public comment. We've already gone over the time for that. I promised Harvard Westlake they could make a brief statement after public comment. So if the rest of the panel, can you help me promote Ari? There you are. And
Do you want to promote Stacy?
Yeah, I already took care of that.
was there anybody else, Ari? You can unmute yourself.
I think
David Wheel?
David Wheel's here.
Yeah, hi, David Wheel should be.
Yeah, he is. I saw his name.
Okay, David's been promoted. So Ari, if you can try to do this in 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get into some of the comments or questions from the public with the committee, and then we'll go to the board.
Sounds great. Thank you, Scott. And thanks to the council members for the opportunity to speak with you about this important and I know exciting project. First of all, I want to say something obvious, but I think it's important to say it out loud. Harvard Westlake is not a typical developer. We're not a business. We're a nonprofit school. While our main purpose is, of course, to serve and educate our own students, we also strive every day to serve our community more broadly. That's our vision for the River Park, and it's been that vision since day one, to create a place that will be treasured by our community and serve their needs in addition to ours. So I'd like to reflect for a second on our school's approach to this project, for which we've embraced transparency at an extraordinary and collaboration at an extraordinary level. We purchased the property 5 years ago and have engaged the community every step of the way, and even involved stakeholders in developing design principles. We solicited community feedback at numerous community meetings long before any DEIR materials were prepared. While we appreciate our frequent engagement with the neighborhood council to date, dating all the way back to 5 years ago, I'm not sure if anybody on the current council was even on the council when we first started to engage. I think Richard Nyderberg was, when we first started to engage with the council about this project. We're actually now quite concerned that this board, as it's currently comprised, is being put in a very different and troubling position tonight. For starters, you're being asked to consider a motion to oppose the River Park project before you have a full and accurate accounting of all the information related to this project. Your vote tonight would be cast before the final EIR is released and the city has completed its review under CEQA. That would be highly unusual. In fact, while numerous members of the ad hoc committee themselves submitted pages of comments and questions to the city when the draft EIR was circulated, the committee itself is not waiting for any of the city's responses to those comments and questions before it advances a motion to this full board. Of course, that committee, the ad hoc committee, was almost entirely comprised, as has been noted by callers tonight, was almost entirely comprised of individuals who are not, in fact, neighborhood council members and who raised their hands to join that committee specifically out of their own ideological objection to our project. Now you, as council members, are being asked to rely on that committee's incomplete and inaccurate analysis, which completely dismisses the work of the scientists, the engineers, and the experts whose job it is to objectively evaluate projects under the California Environmental Quality Act. Dismissing the detailed work of technical experts approved by the city undermines clearly established public policy and ultimately undermines the CEQA process itself. Regardless, what we're here to do is try to present the facts as we understand them from the technical experts, based on science and consistent with the EIR process outlined and mandated by the city. So, the motion you're being asked to consider tonight describes three main areas of concern about the River Park. The first is greenhouse gases, specifically a concern that the River Park will result in an increase in greenhouse gas production. Here are the facts about greenhouse gases. The school has never claimed that this project would be carbon neutral. While the project will meet all city requirements and achieve a very high standard for sustainability, to be clear, there is no city requirement that a project be carbon neutral. This is a goal that the ad hoc committee has contrived. Most importantly, a significant portion of the net increase in GHG, or greenhouse gases, is a function of the anticipated community use of the River Park. The analysis found on page 53 of the EIR in the section on greenhouse gases indicates that fully 2/3 of the river park's conservatively modeled GHG will be from public uses. And as you know, we've committed to extensive public use of the site. So many stakeholders have argued over the years that the school should commit to significant public access to the site. And Harvard Westlake has repeatedly and publicly made this commitment. But it's really not fair for stakeholder advocates like the ad hoc committee to argue for continued public enjoyment of the site and then simultaneously penalize the school for the greenhouse gases associated with that public enjoyment. The second concern expressed by the ad hoc committee in the motion before you is about the anticipated use of synthetic turf for the athletic fields. We plan to use synthetic turf for the same reason that the city's own Department of Recreation and Parks has installed it at, as other callers have noted, 39 of their own parks across the city, including parks in Sherman Oaks, Encino, North Hollywood, Sylmar, Sun Valley, and 2 in Van Nuys. And here's what laparks.org says on their own website about synthetic turf. Quote, synthetic fields offer many advantages over natural turf fields, which require a significant amount of maintenance, chemical fertilizers, and water. Synthetic fields enable round-the-clock playing times and a more consistent playing surface. When properly maintained, the fields last for years, and their savings in water, maintenance, and chemicals accrue significantly over time, end quote. So some opponents of the river park are asking the city to reject our project over concerns about synthetic turf, while ignoring that at the same time, the city itself has embraced synthetic turf and keeps installing it in its own parks. Furthermore, the ad hoc committee's motion tries to sound an alarm about the safety of synthetic turf while ignoring the body of peer-reviewed scientific literature reviewed and accepted by the city, which concludes that synthetic turf is safe. For example, we've heard project opponents cite a study, which is easily accessible on the internet with a Google search on the internet, that crumb rubber, when used as artificial turf infill, causes cancer. But what you haven't been told, and wasn't revealed in comment letters to the city, is, and it would have been appropriately vetted through the CEQA process, is that the authors of that very study admitted to a significant error in their calculations that caused them to reverse their conclusion. In fact, infill does not cause cancer. In still other comments, opponents have insisted that synthetic turf fields don't save water because they need to be watered all the time to cool them down. But we have a synthetic turf field at the campus on Coldwater Canyon. That field is never watered. And the river park design does not even have irrigation lines to our fields. The last concern expressed on the motion before you is about noise, light, and traffic impacts. The ad hoc committee says it is concerned about the combined impacts of River Park and related projects such as the apartments that are proposed at Sportsman's Landing. In fact, the EIR process required that the city consider combined impacts, and they're outlined in Chapter 3 section on environmental settings, page 5. In short, the committee suggests and bases its motion on a conclusion that the EIR does not perform an analysis that it does in fact perform. If anything, the EIR is overly conservative about construction impacts. In summary, it's regrettable that this neighborhood council was being asked to take action tonight prematurely and based on limited or inaccurate information. But rather than spending more time talking about that, because David and I will be available for questions later, I want to spend a few minutes making some remarks about how the river park will benefit the school and the community. I think it's important information for you to have because many of the neighborhood council members that I'm talking to now were, as I said, not on the council when the project was first proposed. And really this project should be viewed in its totality. So when the school first purchased the property over 5 years ago, the first thing we began to do was engage the Studio City community. We held numerous meetings all the way back to 2018, a number of public meetings. We met with the representatives from the Studio City Residents Association, a number of whom have called in tonight in opposition to the project. They were nonetheless members of a group that helped to create the very design principles that governed the development of the site and which are the design principles that remain today on the River Park website. We had briefings before the Studio City Neighborhood Council going back 4 years ago. We did direct mail. We published a website. We received thousands of emails. And we had primarily Stacy Marble and myself had hundreds of in-person or virtual meetings with individual community stakeholders or small groups of community members in order to gather community feedback about what we want to build. That feedback also came in from the city council office. There was a very detailed letter prepared by then council member Paul Krikorian outlining all of the numerous changes that he and his office wanted us to make to our proposed project plan. And despite what may have been said tonight, many changes have been made by Harvard Westlake to the project design over the course of the last 4 years. I'm not going to go through all of them because they're too numerous to list them all, but just an example of a few of the big ones. The tennis courts were relocated from their current location to the north end of the property. The gymnasium was reduced in size by about a third. The height of the gym was brought to current zoning, so it's conforming height. The swimming pool length was reduced from 75 meters to 50 meters. Fields were reoriented. The clubhouse, the putting green, the golf ball floodlights, the cafe will all remain. They'll be rehabilitated and open to the public. We committed to not having football games on the site. We committed to public access of the tennis courts extended into the evening hours. We committed that non-recreational spaces would be open to the public from sunrise until the closing at the end of the evening. We committed to maintaining, with the county's permission, the Zev-Yaroslavsky River Greenway to secure it and to beautify it. And we committed to installing the largest privately funded stormwater reclamation system that the city of LA has. We also committed to planting 390 trees, all of which are climate appropriate, California native, and will offer greater canopy coverage and carbon sequestration capacity than what's there today. Lots and lots and lots of changes were made by Harvard Westlake to the plan, all in direct response to community feedback. The other piece of feedback that we got from the community is that the community didn't want to see a project that was going to have long-term operating environmental impacts. And so the design from the very beginning, working with our designers and our landscape architects, was to ensure that the project was going to be environmentally sound. And so that's why we've been so proud that when the DEIR was circulated, it concluded that there would be no long-term operating impacts from this site. That's the way that we hoped it would be from the beginning. And we're gratified that's exactly what the DEIR has concluded. We also think that there are quite a few community benefits that should be noted. There'll be over 5 acres of public walking trails, plazas, lawns, seating areas. There'll be a 3/4 mile secured walking and jogging trail around the entire perimeter of the property. There are some in the community who say, well, that's just the required setback that the city insists that you have. That's actually not true. In most cases, the smallest width of our walking and jogging trail is nearly twice the required setback. And in many cases, it's 3 or 4 times as wide as the required setback. It's a substantial walking and jogging trail. As I mentioned, it's the school's hope in working with the county to be able to maintain and improve the Zev-Yaroslavsky Greenway, which for those of you who have gone down there, know it is not well maintained and is currently unsafe. As we've committed, the tennis courts will be open to the public, including tennis pros and recreational leagues. The cafe, the courtyard areas, the putting green will all be open to the public as well. Athletic fields, the track, the gym will be available to community groups. Generally, Harvard Westlake use will be from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on school days. Other times of day and other days of the year, those facilities will be open for the public to enjoy through community groups. There'll also be a number of environmental benefits. As I mentioned, 390 new trees will be planted, about 150 more trees than are on the site today. All of the trees that we'll be planting are California native species that will improve habitat for wildlife and bird life, that will improve the carbon sequestration capacity of the site, that will offer greater shade canopy, and that will ultimately conserve water. We also plan to preserve a number of the mature trees. More than half of the trees that come down as part of the project are palms, which are not even allowed to be planted along the river and are not obviously environmentally friendly. So I'm running through all these benefits. I know we're short on time. I really just wanted to be able to give those council members who may have not had the benefit of meeting with us in the past an opportunity to hear a little bit about some of the positive of this project. And of course, David and I remain available throughout the rest of this evening to answer your questions. Appreciate your time, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. We heard a lot of public comment. Much of it really didn't address what's on the agenda as far as the motion, although many comments did. Some were questions. If anything stuck out in your mind, Chip, you can sort of buzz through those before we go to the board, and we'll give Ari a chance as well. And just for those who were keeping score, I counted about 28 callers opposing the motion, 40 supporting the motion. As far as our emails in support of the motion, it was approximately 115 with 1 opposing that came in via email. That's neither here nor there. That's just because I kept track of what a lot of the callers and emailers said. So Chip, is there anything that you heard?
Yeah, there's a couple things I'd like to burn through fast. And thank everyone for sitting through all this time. And Ari, thank you for your response. As far as waiting for the FEIR and this being premature, I would argue that this is 7 months too late. This response right now is finishing up the paperwork that I believe this board, when I wasn't a member, should have filed prior to the end of the public comment period of the DEIR in May of 2022. In April of 2022, Randy Freed, who was then president, came to me, asked me to put together a committee and do the SCNC comment in the public comment period because the land use committee at that time had not taken up the topic. We had very little time. I got COVID. One of my kids got married. We did the best we could. And what we ended up doing at that point is having a bunch of informal meetings, have one public meeting, gave a proposal to the board, which made it in time for the DEIR comment period, but was not filed. And it was filed on June 9th. And in June 9th, the finding of the board was we didn't have time to review 6,053 pages, nor the resources. It was an important topic. The issues have been out there for a long time. They still exist. And we should put together an ad hoc committee to meet with Harvard Westlake and discuss the issues. That's what we did. This meeting is hopefully the end of that ad hoc committee. So we are just finishing up the paperwork for the DEIR. When the final EIR comes out, there'll be another conversation. We are not jumping the shark with this. We are just trying to button up what we are late in actually having done. As far as, so that's the FEIR. As far as the ad hoc being loaded, I understand that there is representation. I understand how it looks that way. I accepted everybody that asked to be on the board. Even those people that I knew had a point of view and a personality that would make it difficult to actually get consensus with, because there's some strong people on here with strong opinions. Everyone came in. I didn't like the makeup. I went back to Ari twice and said, Ari, I need somebody from your side to help me balance the conversation. And we couldn't find somebody because the reality is there's 29,000 dwellings or addresses in the 91604 area code. Harvard Westlake draws people from all over the community for good reason. People from the Palisades to Burbank go to Harvard Westlake. But it's bugged me. Why doesn't someone from Harvard Westlake honor the process enough to participate? Do they figure they don't need to? Do they figure it doesn't matter because they got it? This weekend, I looked at a 2010 Harvard Westlake student directory. I went back and got an old one so I didn't actually create problems for friends of mine who are current parents. And I took a look and I wrote A, 27 families, 91604, all other zip codes. And I sat there and did marks till I got to G. And what I found at that point, only 2% of the students from A through G in 2010, based on my math, and I was distracted a bit by the NFL game, so it may not actually add up. Only 2% were Studio City neighborhood residents. That means it's difficult to actually get a balanced board. It also colors the conversation we're having a little bit, but there was not a concerted effort to stack this board, quite the opposite. So that's so much for the loaded board.
Chip, can I make a quick comment on
Yeah.
that? Yeah, by no means am I suggesting that there was an effort, and certainly not by you, to stack this board.
Okay.
I'm merely pointing, and I certainly did not mean to imply that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
the board, and you and I did have that conversation. The board, however, nonetheless, is representative of primarily of people who raised their hands specifically because they were opposed to this project. And my point in bringing that up was to let the full neighborhood council know, which delegated the responsibility to this ad hoc committee to do an analysis of the DER, that it delegated that analysis to a group of people who joined that committee specifically because they're opposed to the project. And that's a true fact. And that's not an implication, that's not an indictment of the process. It's a point of information for the full council to know, and for the council members who are voting on this to know that the recommendation that they're receiving is a recommendation from a committee that came into its process predisposed to find reasons to vote against this project. And that's exactly what they did.
So I just want to intervene for 1 second. This is the second ad hoc. This is the first one since I was board president. As Chip mentioned, the previous ad hoc was formed under the prior president, Randy Freed. The same call to action went out, and pretty much the similar makeup of people joined the committee. So if the people who did raise their hand to join did have a sort of a predisposition on the project, that wasn't what made up the committee. Those were just the members of the community that decided to volunteer. So I think it's an unfair characteristic of the committee itself, because it was open to everybody and anybody. And these are the people that showed up and did the work and attended the meetings and helped with the reports and put in the time and effort. And nobody on the quote other side actually applied. So it's two different ad hocs through two different presidents with the same result in the makeup. Go ahead, Chip. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Appreciate it. So the other thing too is that the findings and the mission of this ad hoc did not mirror some of the other opposing 5013Cs that are out there. No one disputes. So our mandate here as Studio City Neighborhood Council is to serve all the stakeholders. You're a stakeholder. Harvard Westlake is one, if not the largest landowner in the community, and probably one of the largest employers. So we get that. Our mission was take a look at the artificial turf issue, which has existed since you bought the property. Take a look at some of the other stuff. As I look at all of this, what I'm finding, to I don't think anyone's surprise, is that our city and state government has potentially let us down. They don't always fully protect or fully inform us. The planning department is, I read over the break that they have 28% of their seats open right now. They are understaffed and overworked. They're giving bad guidance because all of the rules are behind the time. They're giving conflicted information from their superiors. When it gets to artificial turf, when it gets to greenhouse gases, we talk about, or this was decried as, your project was called forward thinking, and the board was characterized as being a bunch of Luddites. I think we all need to be forward thinking. We all need to do the right thing in spite of what the regulations say. So even if there isn't a regulation that talks about specifics with greenhouse gas, I think we know what we want to do. Moving towards the Green New Deal, carbon neutral, that's where we want to go. That's the responsible higher purpose we want to serve. I think we can all figure out whether the nits and gnats match. Putting 3 acres of plastic on the ground, which is going to break down in 7 years. If you hold in one hand a brand new piece and hold in the other hand a 7-year-old piece, the material is different. Where did all of that stuff go? Right? It went into the environment and it's not good for you. So we just know the right thing is that artificial turf isn't there. Let's not try to slide it through before the rules come down and prohibit that. As far as the greenhouse gas, the same page 53 that you talked about in the greenhouse gas document. Yes, two-thirds of the greenhouse gas contribution is from mobile sources, which is vehicle miles traveled associated with the project and community use. I get that. Right now, the existing site contributes 1,186 metric tons of greenhouse gas per year, per the DEIR. That's 1186. With the best of effort, the new project will come up with 1,533 more. So we're going to go from 1186 to 2719, or more than double the greenhouse gas with the best of intentions. The best of intentions means solar panels, all the green infrastructure that can possibly put in. If that green infrastructure isn't put in, which it will be, we could be almost 2.5 times. So here's the deal. The regulation, so artificial turf, we know plastic is bad. We shouldn't do it. We understand you're not going to run a golf course. We understand you want to put down fields. We're saying don't do it in plastic. When it comes to the greenhouse gas, you didn't claim it would be carbon neutral. Although, to be honest, I was confused. Yes, there's no regulation. It doesn't make it not the right thing to do to be carbon neutral. If I take a look at the plan to show how the regulations are not serving anybody well, if we go to page 51, 51 talks about the metric tons of carbon dioxide that will be created by the construction of the project, assuming a 3-year project. So we're coming in at construction year 1 is 2,817 metric tons. Construction year 2 is 5,518. Construction year 3 is 4,570. Big numbers, because we're talking 1186 right now, and the parking lot's full. The 3-year total of construction is 12,902 metric tons of carbon dioxide, or 10.8 times the annual production right now of greenhouse gases. And this is just CO2. So that's pretty gnarly that there's going to be 11 years worth of production in 3 years as a result of the construction. Not really a surprise, but quantifying it's a little bit scary. What the state lets them do, and it's not just Harvard Westlake, they take that 12,000, they amortize it over 30 years. So they can say, wait, it's not 12,300 or 12,900 over 3 years. In fact, it's only 430 tons a year over 30 years. This isn't a mortgage. You're 30 months into this thing. If you live in the neighborhood, you've been dealing with the construction for 2.5 years, you're not going to care that it's not going to feel to you like it's 1/10 of what it really is. So the numbers are weird for the greenhouse gas. And I bring this up because for Harvard Westlake to say they have a clean DEIR, or it doesn't need to be mitigated, the way greenhouse gases are measured, as explained to me by the planning department, is you can amortize them over 30 years. And if you do the best you can with solar panels and other mitigation, even if you don't get back to zero, it just kind of gets to be a wash, and it doesn't matter. You've done the best you have. You could, because the specs aren't up to date yet. So what I'm saying is, let's actually shoot in front of the duck. Let's do the right thing, knowing in our heart of hearts what needs to get done. Let's not use artificial turf. And what would be the plan to take a look to bring this thing closer to carbon neutral? Are these vehicle miles traveled with the opposing teams coming to the river park new vehicle miles, or are those people that are currently going to the mid Coldwater campus now coming down to Weddington? So there's an offsetting loss up in mid Coldwater. I can't tell from this. And to be honest, if I did the math and did it accurately, which I might be able to do if I spent that much time, I would be discredited because I'm not credentialed. So I'm asking you guys, you've got 3 pieces of property on this side of the hill. Where in the equation of all of those is there a way to make this thing look and feel legitimately carbon neutral? So that's what I'm asking. And then beyond that, I agree, we need to formalize, Ari, like a steering committee, whatever we're going to call it. Someone, I forget who it was, opposed a steering committee.
Yeah.
So we'll brand it whatever people want to brand it, but we need to get that together. And then once the FEIR comes out, we have a very brief window and we get to do this all over again. And then at that point, we know specifically what you guys are going to build. And then that don't call me steering committee would be what would actually start to drive the usage and public access. But right now, I think it's important that the neighborhood councils say, we don't want 3 acres of plastic because we know it's not good for you. And we know it's going to be here for 7 years or maybe 10. And even then, when you throw it away, it doesn't really go anywhere because you can't break it down. And what are we going to do if 3 years from now, we're being told that kids can't walk on it? Now, it's not going to be that extreme, but I'd rather beat that. Also, there's a tremendous amount of biological value of real grass. As far as the greenhouse gases, let's talk about how we can make that make sense.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that the concerns that you've expressed are perfectly legitimate. And to your point, those are concerns that the neighborhood council perhaps, could have or should have taken up much earlier when the DEIR was circulated, and it has every right to submit those comments to the city. My point is that to couple the findings of the ad hoc committee with a motion to oppose the project feels premature because the city has not had a chance to respond to those comments. And so what has felt to us appropriate is for the neighborhood council to offer its comments and its concerns to the city, as other stakeholders have, and for the city to then respond in the circulation of the final EIR. And at that point, if the neighborhood council wants to oppose the project, it obviously has the freedom to do that. To the point of the steering committee, as you know, we've spent a lot of time talking about this, Chip, and we're very amenable to a steering committee. We fully expect that one would exist, and we would embrace the opportunity to work with stakeholders who have a realistic expectation for the future, so that we can begin to plan how the facility operates and begin to plan activities that are beneficial to community members once the site opens.
Any question, Scott, I guess back to you.
I think, based on what we've heard, a lot of information. And I guess to Ari's point, yes, this has been going on for a number of years through many different boards, ad hoc committees, even before the prior 2 that were formed by this board, the past president and myself. And I think what we're hearing from a lot of the stakeholders is, after all these years, just come up with a position at this point in time. And I think that's what Chip pretty carefully did. It's a position at this point in time based on a few very limited issues, and opening up to future motions and submissions based on other issues that are going to be coming up, such as public access, conditional use, the ramp. These are all going to be tackled. And I think with the EIR coming out shortly and will be under a time constraint, I don't see any problem in getting this stuff that Chip has in his motion on the record now. So based on what we heard from the public and from you, unless there was anything else in the public comment that really stuck out that needed to be addressed, I think we should now go to the board. Or if Chip wanted any specific person on the committee who might have a a very short statement of expertise on any of the items we just heard. Otherwise, I think we can just go back and forth around the horn with committee and board raising their hand with points. If we could just keep each comment brief.
Yeah, Alex, could you, I didn't have time to open the email the text you just sent me, Alex, without getting
I'll just make it
distracted. So
yeah,
this
I'll try to
just
make
in, I guess.
real brief. If there's anybody from the public listening, that was a completely misguided, misinformed comment made. No, you cannot. You cannot put in artificial turf and receive $5 per square foot from LADWP. That is a complete misconception and it's wrong. So please get that out of your heads. Not going to happen. Number two, state of California, Connecticut has enacted a bill, Ari, and I hope you're listening, that will completely prohibit the use of artificial turf, contracts and installation of artificial turf. State of Connecticut, and that is is now on the floor of the State Assembly in Connecticut. So I'd like, Ari, please, for you to start listening to the headlines and the entire country and states like Connecticut and municipalities all over this country that are banning and prohibiting artificial turf. So it is a complete head in the dirt if you're thinking that stuff works for you and Harvard Westlake. It's not. So please.
Thanks, Alex. Melanie, you're up.
Oh, thanks. I actually was initially just going to say the first part of what Alex said, and I don't want anybody walking away from here thinking that DWP incentivizes artificial turf. That was taken off the table 7 years ago. They understand the issues. It is not healthy for the environment and the soil, and the city has initiatives to support healthy soils and groundwater infiltration, and you're not going to get an incentivized rebate for artificial turf. I also want to say it's frustrating for me as someone who has expertise here to have spent 4 years asking for an audience with the developer and to never have been granted a single discussion. So it's frustrating to be boxed into a corner saying this committee is filled with people who are violently opposed to us and implying that we're not reasonable and saying that you work with everybody and you've made all these changes. And there are a lot of people that haven't had an opportunity after many requests, and the changes made are not transparent. And we're sticking here to some very specific things, as was our remit. And while a lot of the comments went well beyond that, our remit was to stick to very specific things. We've done our job well. This is the findings that we have, and that's what's before the board. That's all. Thank you.
I would just add, Melanie, in fairness, I've never received a phone call or email from you, but I'd be happy to meet with you on Monday if you want.
Not true, but yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, give me a call.
Scott, the ad hoc.
You can find me.
Ira, go ahead. You have a question, concern?
Board comment?
Sure.
Cool. So staying within the confines of the motion that we're tasked with today or tonight, I know that there's been a pretty significant focus on environmental concerns. And while I'm not going to discredit any of those concerns, I'm not an expert, nor am I going to say that any of these concerns are not important. There's still something that I think has not received a lot of attention in the discussions tonight. And that's part 3, community issues, light, noise, and traffic. I'm going to make a speculation, and I admit that it is a speculation, and I could very well be incorrect. But it appears to me, looking at some of the emails that we received, that the board received, and a lot of the comments that we've received in previous meetings, that, again, speculation, that the majority of stakeholders are not necessarily concerned about the environmental hazards, but might be mostly concerned about the community issues, the light, noise, and traffic, the issues of construction, the issues of usage post-construction, especially those who have voiced concerns in the immediate area. So I know that we are heavily discussing, heavily focusing on these environmental concerns tonight. However, even let's just say that we could wave a magic wand and Harvard Westlake would say, we're going to make this completely carbon neutral if that were even possible, it still doesn't alleviate the issues that I believe most people have, and again, speculatively, of light, noise, and traffic. So I would like to steer the conversation a little bit in the little time we have left tonight, if it's even possible, to that light, noise, and traffic concern. How could that be mitigated? So if we can steer it that direction, I'd like to do that, because I think that's where the majority of people, majority of stakeholders really have their concerns. Thank you.
Anybody else from well, Chip, did you want to address that as your
Yeah, I mean, it's just that it was difficult to figure out specifically what the access would be if we were still, so for example, the turf in particular is kind of a gating factor to the rest of those conversations. One of the things about turf, other than the fact that it's aesthetically pleasing because it stays flat and green all the time, is that it's really playable. It's very durable, right? So if Harvard Westlake had an aggressive athletic schedule, it would be difficult for them to make the fields open for a public league or public play on Saturday and Sunday, for example, because the real turf needs to rest between uses. So we needed to figure out what the actual facilities, the amenities at the venue were going to be, and what the load carrying capacity of those venues were. And then that committee we talked about, that steering committee, would sit down with Harvard Westlake and figure it out. The other thing that's going to be important to discuss, and we're not going to have the time here, is what actually is the community. And this really is a neighborhood council conversation, because right now the community using Weddington Golf and Tennis is the golfers, the people that are playing 9 holes, hitting a bucket of balls, playing on the putting green. Those probably have some overlap. And then you've got some tennis people. All the golfers go away for sure. We know they've been disbanded. So that community has been upended. We think that there's going to be a sharp reduction in the number of tennis community members that exist. And for the period of construction, there will be no courses. Then what does the community look like? And we need to make sure that, and I'm not speaking about you, Ari, like you're not in the room, but we need to make sure that community isn't the Harvard Westlake students, faculty, administration, parents, and the opposing team who comes in from another community, because that to me doesn't feel like the Studio City community. So we're going to have to sit down with Harvard Westlake and be very specific about what does community access look like and who is the community. And there may be different ones served, right? If the pool's open in the morning for swimming lessons, is that going to be geriatric physical therapy, or is that going to be preschool swimming lessons? And that'll, we need to figure that out. We're not there yet because we don't know what we're talking about. There's one school of thought, which would be heretical in the Harvard Westlake mind, that we lose the pool down there because it's a big, loud piece of ceramic that is going to emit greenhouse gases. Now, they're not going to want to hear that, and we're not really pushing it hard. We need to have the conversation. We're not ready yet. Are you going to talk about what you guys have actually cemented so far? No pun.
In terms of community use?
Yeah, I mean, the Angel City stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if Art knows that.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to spend a second talking about that, and thank you for that chance. By the way, even before I get to that, and because we've had this brainstorm in the past, and I've brainstormed with other stakeholders as well, that one of the things that we hope to do is get to the point where we do have this working steering committee, and we can begin to collaborate with the neighborhood council and with other stakeholder groups around opportunities at River Park. One of the things that we've talked about in the past before is the movies in the park that are done all over the city. There won't be a better place within Studio City to do movies in the park than when River Park is built. It will be safe, it will be secure, there will be food service on site, there will be ample space for kids to play and for movies to take place. That's just one, very example of very low hanging fruit where programs can be run on that site that are entirely for the benefit of the immediate community. Some of the partnerships that we've already put in place. On the athletic side, we have two very important partnerships. One with the Special Olympics of Southern California, and one with a group called Angel City Sports, which serves physically disabled athletes. So the idea here is that most athletic programs that are operated in traditional schools, whether those are Harvard Westlake or LAUSD schools or anywhere else, are primarily aimed at serving the 85% of students, of young people who are able-bodied. But about 15% of children in Los Angeles and around the country are born with a physical or developmental disability. And we have it as an important goal for this project, as part of the school's mission of Purpose Beyond Self, that we make this facility available to, and that we purposefully develop programming that's aimed at serving 100% of youth. And that means not just the 85% who attend Harvard Westlake, who attend the schools that come to play at Harvard Westlake, but the 15% who don't normally have access to facilities like this. So we very consciously have gone out and partnered with Special Olympics to serve developmentally disabled students, and with Angel City Sports to serve physically disabled students. And we'll be doing that through a variety of programs. We already host programs on our current campuses, both with Special Olympics and with Angel City. And this will become a Valley home for a lot of their programs. On the educational side.
You know what, you guys, this is outside the purview of the motion. And sort of,
yeah, I mean,
I'd like to get back to the purview of the motion and maybe, call for a vote.
Sure, I was just answering Chip's question. Should I continue?
It's a fair point to try to stay on track. These are things that are going to be, as far as the motion at hand, will be item 4 of the motion's other issues. So maybe
Ira, there's a lot of preliminary work that's been done about that. It's not the time yet, in the opinion of the ad hoc, and we need to put a committee together that will actually be the steering committee, who would be the person you call for noise complaints. We'll get there. Today, we're talking about turf, greenhouse gas, and get a thumbs up on starting to work on the other committee.
So are there any other board members that actually have any more questions or comments after the couple hours we've, Brandon, please go ahead.
Sure, why not? I wish we had started with the Ari and Chip debate early on, because I know I'm going to get hate email for this, and I simply don't care. I don't think anyone read the agenda. I think 1 out of every 5 public comments were actually on point. Just as Adele said, just as Chip said, halfway through the public comments, we're not talking about either we support or don't support River Park. We're specifically talking about greenhouse gas production, artificial turf, and the community issues, light, noise, and traffic. Basically, it says in the motion that really requires another committee, which Chip just mentioned a little while ago. It's really for another time. So we're really talking about greenhouse gas emissions, and artificial turf. But the vast majority on both sides, for River Park and against River Park, apparently had a script in hand. They didn't have the agenda in hand either. They were way off point. And I wanted this 3+ hours to hear from the community and hear what they had to say about artificial turf, about greenhouse gases, about health concerns. Andrea E. actually had the best comment about her kids playing on artificial turf. I really appreciated that comment. I might abstain in my voting because the motion doesn't link to any scientific studies. It talks about scientific studies. There's a hotly debated topic. The current research has environmental and consumer advocates touting studies. Well, why don't you just link the studies so I can actually read them? So the motion, although it's well written, and I appreciate the ad hoc committee for writing it, it's a very well thought out motion, except when you say there are studies, can you maybe link the studies so I can read them? What studies are you looking at? Because the studies I might be looking at may not be the studies you're looking at. And I'd like to get into your minds and find out exactly what's going on there. I'm neither for nor against River Park right now, because my big concern has been the concern I've always had, public accessibility versus open to the public. They're two completely different things. I've mentioned that before. How open to the public is River Park actually going to be? That's my big sticking point. In terms of artificial turf, well, they're not breaking any rules by doing it. And yes, there's a lot of parks that have artificial turf, including Sherman Oaks. Yes, including what Andrea E. said. You can easily, if you're not wearing the right kind of footwear, you could tear your knee apart. It is more prone for injuries. I wish that had been in the motion. Artificial turf causing more injuries. There are studies on that. Pro athletes can tell you that. Football players can tell you that. When they play on artificial turf, there's more injuries than on natural turf, because natural turf tends to give and break if you twist the wrong way, or artificial turf will not. That's not in this motion. I wish it had been. So I appreciate the ad hoc committee and all the work they did. It was really a no-win situation, this ad hoc committee. Half the people were going to love you and half the people were going to hate you no matter what you wrote down. So it was a tough motion to write, because it's polarizing, and I understand that. But I don't think I have enough information yet to actually give a yes or a no, so I might abstain. That's no knock on the ad hoc committee or any members or any of the public. I just wish everyone had stayed on topic on artificial turf and greenhouse gases and not been reading a pre-written script. I just wish that was the case. I really would have loved to hear more information on this. Thank you.
So Chip, do you want to mention the connectivity to the DEA?
Yeah, I can. As far as the injuries, Brandon, if Harvard, I agree. I mean, and we all have anecdotes. My son-in-law played professional soccer. We have conversations about artificial turf, natural turf, and Argentina. That's more to my mind. And as we discussed it in the committee, it didn't seem appropriate for us to tell Harvard Westlake and Harvard Westlake families what to do with their kids. What we were talking about is, what is the burden of the installation in the neighborhood? So that was inappropriate for us to have a conversation about the injury at Super Bowl 2 years ago. We didn't do that. I should have sent you the bibliography. It's 2 pages. We frankly were waiting for some more information that's come up, because the state of California, due to Prop 65, is going to put marking on artificial turf. This product is known to the state of California to be carcinogenic. That's one of the reasons why this didn't get out prior to Christmas, the holiday break, because we thought we were going to get it by then. You might, but read it. But as you can see from what happened from all the people, if I sent you 40 links to arcane carcinogen, where you needed an organic chemistry degree to do it, you wouldn't want to read them anyhow. Trust me, it's bad. That's all we can say on that. So, I mean, does anyone, Alexander, I mean, we don't really have, we would need to give, per Brandon's conversation, we would need to actually put the studies in front of him. And in all fairness, you'd also have to see the studies that the industry has put together. And then when you look at the broad range of studies, you can understand that this is perhaps a little bit too hysterical. And this is analogous to 9 out of 10 doctors who smoke camels.
But you also have to ask, why is the state of Connecticut finished? Why are they done? Now they've made their decision and they're on track to prohibit it the entire state. I'm just wondering, is anybody wondering, maybe these studies are now concluded? I mean, the conclusions are out there by a complete state, and this could, will likely be state by state. And I hope Ari and Harvard Westlake are listening.
But we don't have that in the bibliography, which was the...
All right, well, we'll get it. I apologize if I'm a little passionate tonight, but I'm just amazed that we're not going further along here with the artificial turf news. But we'll put that together in a cohesive manner. So I'll help in any way I can. Thank you.
Let's hear from Kim. She has her hand raised.
Thank you. Just a few quick comments. I really have found this incredibly enlightening tonight. I appreciate all of the input from our stakeholders, those that are both for and against the project in general. Ira, I do appreciate you bringing up also the reasons that some others might object to this project that isn't in this motion. And perhaps that wasn't clear to people. I mean, I realize there's the motion, but there's such a big topic that it's appreciated that Ira brought that up. And Chip, you have had incredible input here. Thank you for all that. As well as having Ari and David here with all their information. And this has been terrific. And I just wanted to thank people for all of this. And it gives a lot of pause for thought on many different things. And that's the reason we're here, and why everybody's input is so valuable. And we do take all comments seriously. Many of us are, really take the comments to heart. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their input tonight. Thanks.
As far as the input, just so you know, since we did miss the official public comment period, we will not get a response to our comments from the city. Everyone that forwarded a comment to the city prior to the end of the public comment period after the DEIR will get a response from the city individually. I don't know if you're going to be batched with all of you people wanting artificial turf, but there will be a response. Our response will be noted in the record, but we will not get a response.
Julie, go ahead, please. You're muted.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Kim said without restating it all. And Ira, and thank you to everybody who put all this effort into tonight. Just getting back to this motion, it says that we oppose it as currently submitted due to these concerns. So by voting for this motion, it appears to me that we're making our recommendation of how we would like this project to be constructed in consideration and in for the health of our neighborhood. And just being clear that whether we oppose the project or not, that's not on the table right now. It's really, this project is in progress, and these are the recommendations we would like to make with regard to these two items. And that's the way I am looking at this situation. We're not making a law about it or a ruling about it. This is how we feel about it and what we recommend. I do agree that there are other issues that are very concerning to me as a stakeholder and a resident, but I'm trying to focus right now on these two things and how they impact. And so I'm just reiterating that this is, we are opposing it as currently submitted. We're not saying we hate the whole project. That's not what this motion is.
Exactly right. It says the committee proposes Harvard Westlake submit a plan that demonstrates reductions or modifications in the scope of the construction of the project and its operations to be carbon neutral. So give us another shot. What do we have to do to be carbon neutral? As far as artificial turf, the motion reads, the preferred path for Harvard Westlake would be installation of natural turf in light of environmental factors, irregardless of the toxicity studies. If you take the he said, she said out of the pro sales and anti-turf, you still have an issue where it's a heat island. All the neighborhood has benefited from an overwatered greenscape forever. Those homes will face a hotter day when it's artificial turf. We don't know what's going to happen with flooding. It's only semi-permeable. We don't know what that risk is going to be. And we also know that the ground beneath artificial turf is dead. And that's not good because so much carbon sequestration happens in the soil. For a ton of reasons, natural turf is a better solution. Do that. That's what we're saying.
So Ira, and then back to Brandon.
So I apologize in advance for harping on this. Okay, so basically, as the motion currently reads, you're pretty much, what you're saying is this: the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council opposes LA City Planning Department as currently submitted due to the following concerns: greenhouse gas production, artificial turf, community issues, and other issues. So that's where my confusion is. You're listing, you're not, you're opposing the project because of these four things, when in fact, this motion really only is opposing it because of items number 1 and number 2. Number 3, number 4 seem like asides, and I don't feel like they belong in this motion. If you're talking about dealing with this at another time, specifically items 3 and item 4, then it's not really relevant to the statement you're making in this motion. So if that's the case, I would suggest removing items 3 and 4. They're not relevant to this motion if you're only focusing on items 1 and 2.
Is that a friendly amendment?
It's a friendly amendment. Because otherwise you're grouping things together that don't make sense. When I first read it, I assumed that that one of the reasons why you're stating you want to you're not supporting it as written is because of things like noise, traffic, and whatnot. And that's why I brought it up. So my friendly amendment would be to remove items 3 and 4 if they're not the reasons why you're not wanting to move forward as is.
I think we are opposing it based on item 3. We just don't have every single issue of item 3 cited. And we're also opposing it for all the other issues that are going to be brought up as the ad hoc continues. So I don't know if they necessarily need to be removed. If you've been to the ad hoc meetings where a lot of these questions could probably have taken place, we would know what transpired during all those meetings and the additional work that needs to be done. Chip, where am I going wrong on that?
I don't think you are. I hadn't considered taking those out, so I had to stop. And it's late, so I really had to stop. I mean, I really felt that until we knew, and I think that the committee felt that until we knew what was actually going to be built there, talking about access. Well, and you know, something at the time this was really done, we were having huge problems with Sportsman's Landing and all the traffic. And so I think that colored some of the, oh, wow, wait a minute, what are we going to do about this? And we're not there yet because there were unexpected negative consequences that came out of, like, none of us thought that they wouldn't hook a loading dock up to Erewhon properly, right? And that's sort of what happened. And that whole intersection got turned sideways and none of us expected that. So I think that's one of the reasons why it was vague here. And I think the idea was, like, this doesn't say it's not time. It says these issues are best handled within the jurisdiction of a new committee that involves Harvard, Westlake, and community stakeholders. And that would take a look at construction and then operation separately. I mean, at the time, and even now, I'm not totally comfortable with what we're going to talk about with construction phase of this, because we don't know what else is going to be going on simultaneously. I think that the light and the noise is going to be a quick meeting. And then item 4 was just that there was a laundry list of other items that in the committee, one person would say this is a problem, somebody else would say this is a problem. So instead of putting out a bunch of things that the majority of the committee didn't, 4 is kind of a catch-all.
It's more like stating that there are other issues. It's not limited to, but there will be other issues discussed. Number 4 doesn't specifically state something that we're opposed to. Number 3 is an area of concern.
And 4 was an example of we didn't want to make satisfaction of 1 or 2 binding.
So I see a bunch of hands up.
Mhm.
We'll just go in order of the top. Brandon, Adele, Richard, Jeff, Julie.
Thank you. It's a good thing our Ira didn't say I move, because then it would immediately require a second. But I guess saying friendly amendment, there is some discussion before anybody seconds. But that's not what I was going to talk about. I'm going to wake Ari up again. Ari, I see you dozing off again, so I'm going to ask you a direct question. I don't know about how to work with the city planning department, anything like that, but just something popped into my mind I'd like to ask you. When you're coming up with the plans for River Park with the artificial turf, is there a belief that it would be easier to run it through the city planning department if artificial turf was involved as opposed to natural turf? Is there a belief that the city is against natural turf, that they're pushing artificial turf so much that it might actually be an incentive for the city to say yes? Again, I don't know how to phrase this question because I'm not a developer and I never worked with planning department before, but is there a belief that they would actually side with you if artificial turf was involved more so than natural turf?
Right. All right. I'd be happy to address that one, since I've been the school representative who's been working in large part with the planning and the technical team. Brandon, no, absolutely not. In fact, the process that the city requires under the California Environmental Quality Act would be just as rigorous and require the same types of analyses. There was no consideration on the part for the school around whether it was more or less expeditious. Thank you.
So Adele, and then Richard, and Julie.
I just wanted to say to Brandon that a lot of the information about artificial turf is emerging and has been in the last several years. The PFAS and PFOS and all the forever chemicals were discovered in 2019 by someone who we had as a guest to the Sustainability Committee, Kyla Bennett. And now the city is not recommending artificial turf for drought, to help with the drought. As a matter of fact, they're recommending planting. And not only is Connecticut have a bill, but Boston has, I'm sorry, Alexander, Boston has banned artificial turf. So is a town in Northern California called Millbrae. And they have a very, a guy from the Sierra Club was talking about, kids play soccer in South America on hard packed mud, and that he suggested that, which I'm sure Americans would never do. But anyway, it is going to be banned all over the United States. And Alexander, stop it. You can talk. Sorry, I'm getting text from Alexander. It is not green space. It is not open green space. It is plastic. And so there's a list of things that are wrong with it. And there's a really great, really well-researched article in the New York Times, The Wired. And they say basically, do anything else but install synthetic turf. It is a heat island. It is, it kills the soil. It kills the trees that it suffocates. It's just, it has massive amounts of problems. There is some, we did have a symposium in the fall And there was a woman who was a doctor, and she's worked with a lot of kids, and the synthetic turf is causing, early diabetes, like tons of medical problems for children. So the science on all that really, really, really is emerging. And I'm happy to send you the symposium, the conversations from the doctor and other experts in the field. So, and I don't blame Harvard Westlake at all, because the field turf, the people who make this stuff are it's like back in the old days when they were telling us that cigarettes didn't cause cancer, and then we had Jeffrey Wigand blow the whistle on that. It's the same thing. Their Monsanto is the company that started Field Turf, which is the company that does most of the turf, makes the turf for athletic fields. And they created Agent Orange and Roundup. And so they're not going to tell us when what they're doing is dangerous to our health. So and this is emerging science, and they're fighting tooth and nail to keep their product going. So and I can send you guys all of the studies and whatnot. And the studies that were used in the DEIR are old studies. They're quite old, and they're not relevant anymore. And so one of the things that I really feel is that the DEIR needs to be recirculated with this information, and they need because they didn't have it when they did it. They didn't have it. It wasn't available. And and I think I appreciate what Chip says about the greenhouse gases and all of that. And the other thing about synthetic turf is that it emits methane gas, which is, we know, worse than CO2. So as it's lying there on the field, it's emitting methane gas, which is invisible and you can't smell it. So we don't know that it's doing that. So, for these reasons, I think this motion is a good motion and well thought out. And I wasn't on the ad hoc committee. I stayed away because I didn't want to, influence it at all. And I'm very happy with what Chip's done. I think he's been very fair. So, thank you.
Richard and then Julie.
Yeah, I generally can go along with clauses 1 and 2. I cannot go along with 3 and 4. So I'm not sure if that ruins everything, or even partially, but I can. Brandon said, but 3 and 4, it's not enough information for me to basically to conclude that is the proper long-term goal. Because once you push this as a finding or a CIS. Good.
And Julie.
I'm not sure I understand what your reasoning was, Richard. I actually was going to say that I support the full motion, because if we take out 3 and 4, I think the 1 and 2 makes it seem not very well thought out, that those are the only 2 motions. So I see 3 and 4 as sort of like additional information for the future. So without getting
You
into
don't have the information right now. That's the whole thing. There's no proof. I can go 1 and 2. I just cannot. I don't see the substantiation on 3 and 4.
Well, what 3 is saying is that we want to have a committee to get to the detail at the appropriate time that you're looking for.
Well, then have a committee come up with a separate motion that deals with everything else that's not on 1 and 2.
That's what it says it will do. It says it will actually do that exact thing. So
no, look.
Right. So anyway, I'll just make one remark. It might be final. As far as us challenging the city and the experts about the city putting in artificial turf and therefore it must be good, and the city this and the city that. I don't trust the city. If anyone on here does, good luck. We see motions coming from Sacramento and from our city council almost every day about climate, greenhouse gases, Green New Deal. If you look around at all the city vehicles, almost all of them say powered by clean burning natural gas. Okay. So I think they were wrong about that, because now we're told that 12% of the children in homes with gas stoves have asthma because of clean burning natural gas. We heard someone make mention of the DWP paying people to put in artificial turf. Well, I think maybe they were wrong on that. And the list goes on. I think it's okay to challenge the city and question authority. And I don't see anything wrong with the structure of the motion, because 3 and 4 is really not stating anything in line with 1 and 2. And it's just positioning ourselves for ongoing discussion and debate and saying this isn't it. There are more things. Otherwise, as Julie mentioned, it sounds like that's all we're going to be talking about. And I see Melanie has her hand, and then maybe we could go for a vote, or if we still have more. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, I'll just sort of reiterate a little bit of what you were saying. I think, we adjust as we learn, and even with the city vehicles, we're learning, we're moving away from CNG vehicles and we're electrifying. There's a big movement to that. When you learn, you need to make changes. Sometimes it takes the city a while to make those changes official. And we're grinding through a bunch of them, but it doesn't hurt when a case can come before them that makes that point salient. It's part of our job here is to protect our community and to bring those issues to the city. And I'll say that with all the resources and the forward-thinking rhetoric and the talk about how you want to listen to the community and you're open to listen to the community, this is saying we're focused on these things right now with what's in front of us. There are others. It's awkward to get pushback while Harvard Westlake is saying we want to work with the community and do the best thing for the community. And we're saying we have some things still to discuss. And to be told that we shouldn't be doing that feels uncomfortable. So this motion is saying, here are the specific things that we've looked at now. There are others we intend to get to, and we will work with you to do that. But putting on the record specifics that we have had the time and the remit in this committee to investigate right now and bringing that to the city's attention, I think it's important for the city to see specifics on the turf, and also to see that we are looking closely at the greenhouse gas emissions on this project, and we want to see some changes. And the rest of it, 3 and 4, just makes clear that we want to continue to look at other issues here and to work with in discussion with Harvard Westlake on how to rectify those. That's it. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, we still have hands. So we have Ira and Terry.
What is the immediate result if this motion is passed? And what is the immediate result if this motion fails? Anyone? That's an actual non-rhetorical question.
I think the motion could be reconsidered at a later date. A failed motion could actually be brought back forth to the board if we're following Robert's Rules of Order. But because it was an ad hoc committee, and by rule, the ad hoc committee dissolves when their purpose is resolved. In this case, presenting the motion to the board, I think it might be gray area. We may have to consult the city attorney to see if we can have another ad hoc meeting with the same people, because the motion has been presented to the board, and therefore, according to our operating procedures and bylaws, their duties have been fulfilled. So I don't think if this motion fails, I don't know if it would go away, but at the same time, if it has to be readjusted, the ad hoc committee would cease to exist by law after this meeting. But I don't know. It's something we'll have to look into. It's a hot button topic. It really is. And it's something we'd have to look into to see if it does fail, what the what our next step might be.
I mean, what are the consequences for it passing versus the consequences for it failing? What actual action, besides the committee disbanding, what actual actions will take place if it passes versus if it fails? Like, what's the next step for Harvard Westlake?
We make the statement that we don't want acres of plastic grass in the neighborhood, and we want this large project to be carbon neutral. And that sets a precedent for talking to the other developments going on. I mean, we are going to see nothing but developmental pressure for far longer than I'm planning on being on this board. So we think that carbon neutrality would be, for example, something to take a look at. The Green New Deal talks about every new building being carbon neutral by 2030. Well, you can't get to every building by 2030 if you don't start with 1 today and 2 tomorrow and 3 the day after. We need to look forward. Where do we want the city to be? We want the city to be green in a true sense and livable and lovely. And we want to start with this project. And if it's emitting 3 times the greenhouse gases as the current installation, that's not good. And if it has toxic plastic turf, that's not good. If it has acres of green grass, that's cool. So that's what we're saying. What do we want it to look like?
So, but if it fails, okay, what I'm trying to get at is, if it fails, does Harvard Westlake not have the ability to utilize turf? Or is this just expressing the board's feelings about using turf?
Yes, this is not, we don't regulate anything. We are, this would be us saying to Harvard Westlake, thank you for asking what we think. We think that the artificial turf is a bad idea for the following reasons.
Got it. Thank you.
City planning department, we also don't like the artificial turf. When I spoke to the city planning department, she mentioned that they were backing off further installations of artificial turf in parks, and also mentioned, yeah, there's no greenhouse gas standard right now. And essentially what happens with the math is that if you try really hard, even if you don't get there, the state just kind of wipes it away and says you did it. It's been mitigated. That is expected to change.
So one more thing, I think, to Ira's question. Well, actually, first of all, the ad hoc need not disband because it can still be a work in progress. They weren't formed just to handle item 1 and 2. Although we can reform the ad hoc, they are not by law, and we don't have to contact the city attorney. The ad hoc can continue until the end of this board at the end of June. So let's not go down that rabbit hole tonight. Also, if it does not pass, this board does not have a position on the project. So if it passes, and I'm going to go speak to Council Member Rahman's office or city planning or any board or any commission or anybody else, we then have the opportunity to say that the Studio City Neighborhood Council has this position at this point in time. If the motion fails, then the board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council is still silent on this project. We don't have an official position, even at this limited point of just the couple points in this motion. And we have literally nothing to say as a board. So we are then silent. That answers your question.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I understand Ira and Brandon's point. I just want to read out
number 4 on the motion. It says other issues. The list above is not comprehensive of the concerns of the members of the ad hoc committee, nor the many community stakeholders who contributed to the conversation that led to this motion. This motion is limited in scope to the specific issues the ad hoc was formed to review. As the Harvard Westlake River Park project moves further through the approval process, there will need to be additional opportunities to seek amendments from the developers. Satisfaction of the concerns above does not guarantee the support of the project absent consideration of other topics. So I think, Ira, that what your concern is that this was and somehow negating the opportunity to address lights, traffic, and the other. And I also want to say that, the reason that we didn't get anything in for the DEIR was because we didn't get things done. And this will give us a voice. And you don't want to throw out the good in waiting for the perfect. And the FEIR is due to drop any day. And we will get 30 to 45 days to respond. And to try to get all through the agendas of the different committees to address all the issues that will be the FEIR, we will be behind the 8 ball. So this is addressing 2 specific issues that are very egregious and have garnered a lot of concern in our community, and says, but not excluding traffic and all the other things. So I believe this is in this motion. And again, the motion is not full stop. It's in its present form, which includes traffic lights, everything else. I was on the ad hoc, and the reason that we drilled down on these is that it was a 6,000 page DEIR. And in order to give any substantive response, we had to narrow the scope. But we're not negating all the other things that you mentioned at all. And this motion, I believe, encompasses all of that. So that's all I'm going to say.
Are there any other hands?
Jeff Hardwick. You have to unmute yourself, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Unmute yourself.
There, I can finally speak now. My box shifted, so I couldn't find my box there for a minute. Yeah, Ira, we're just an advisory body. They could take what we say or leave it. The planning, the planning department. But I do think I'll reluctantly support this. But I do think the bigger fish to fry is the scope of the project, the noise, the vibrations, the 35,714 dump trucks full of excavated materials that go up and down Ventura Boulevard, the concurrency with the Harvard Westlake project, which is going to have over 25,000 dump trucks full of excavated materials, how the concurrency of these projects affect the community, the lights, there's a whole bunch of different issues. So I will reluctantly support this, but I do think we need to address these other important issues as well as 3 and 4 implicate. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any more hands, which means it's time for Abby to call the vote.
Okay, so we're voting on item 4. Kim Clements.
I support the opposition.
Oh, yes. Dint Cutler is absent, Fiona absent, Rhonda Freed absent, Ira Gold,
Yes.
Jeb Harwick,
Yes.
Julie Houlihan,
Yes.
Scott Mandel,
Yes.
Chip Meehan.
You're muted, Chip.
Yeah, yes, actually.
Brandon Marino,
Abstain.
Richard Niederberg.
Hey,
Abstain?
same.
Same. Karen Sorrow,
Yes.
Adele Slutter,
Yes.
Adam Summers absent, Alexa Steinberg,
Yes.
Abby Velasco, abstain. Seeing, motion passes.
What was the count?
The count was, let me count it again, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses. And 3 abstain
And 4 absent.
and 4 absent, so.
Well, thank you all. It's been a long night. Thank you to all the public that attended, and I'm sorry we didn't get to every single hand. We went over the allotted time, and I know this is an important project. My only recommendation is when the ad hoc gets going again, this ad hoc or a new one, I encourage people to participate at that level and not sort of wait until we're at the voting stage. We can get a lot more changes to motions and such at the ad hoc committee level. There'll be plenty of meetings and they're short. I believe we cap, or the chair had capped the ad hocs at 90 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, and anything that wasn't addressed was continued to another meeting. So these weren't all-nighters. So, and I see I have a typo on my agenda. We're going on to adjournment, but it is not item 14, although it feels like it. So again, thank you all. And absent any objections, I move to adjourn at 10:33 p.m. Good night. This will be up on our webpage tomorrow because it'll take a couple hours for Zoom to render it. So thank you all and good night.
Good night.